Chapter 5643. Lingshan wanted to say something, but remembered that there were two outsiders here. She turned her head and didn't say anything. In actuality, Ma Zedong and Chen Biden were in a state where they'd forgotten themselves. There was nothing else in their minds other than the refinement fire. Not to mention the fact that Lingshan was just talking to Lin Yi in a whisper. Even if she were to take a gong and bang it in their ears, it wouldn't attract their attention. Lin Yi turned his head to look at Ma Zedong and Chen Biden. He found that these two guys were really talented in alchemy. In such a short time, they had already successfully formed a type of alchemy fire. Ma Zedong's alchemy fire was fire, while Chen Biden's alchemy fire was wood. They could already control the temperature and strength of the alchemy fire. This made Lin Yi especially envious. Success! It really is a chi element refinement fire. With this refinement fire, the quality and success rate of my refinement will increase greatly. Ma Zedong exclaimed excitedly after controlling the fire in her hand. Chen Biden wasn't far behind either. She followed suit and said something similar. Lin Yi smiled. You two are indeed masters of alchemy, to be able to grasp the method in such a short time. It's a cause for celebration. In fact, this kind of basic method was originally a simple entry-level method. It was just like some brain teasers. Those who didn't know would never understand it. But once someone said the answer, everyone would have a feeling of sudden enlightenment and feel that it was actually so simple. Ma Zedong and Chen Biden had this feeling. They were trapped in a room before, and all they could see was the things in the room. Lin Yi was like the person who pushed open a window, letting them realize that there was such a vast world and endless scenery outside. It's all thanks to the guidance of the Grand Master. Otherwise us brothers would have been frogs in the well forever. We didn't know that there was such a whole new world in refinement. Ma Zedong sincerely bowed to Lin Yi. If it could be said that Ma Zedong was forced to rely on Lin Yi because of Lin Yi's strength back in the archaic meeting, then she was completely convinced now. It wasn't just because Lin Yi had taught them the way to form the pure chi attribute pellet fire, but also because of Lin Yi's selflessness in the art of pelletization. If it were Ma Zedong and the others, they wouldn't have so easily taught their own pelletization skills to others. What they didn't know was that Lin Yi really hadn't taught them the best of Zhang Liju's skills. Lin Yi looked at the chi refinement fire in their hands and felt it before speaking. This is just a normal chi refinement fire. Have you tried merging it with the spirit refinement fire? Chen Biden glanced at Ma Zedong and said shamefully, reporting to Grand Master. This disciple has tried but was completely unable to grasp the gist of it. It seems that there is still a long way to go before I can successfully use the fusion of two kinds of pill fires to refine pills. Ma Zedong nodded in agreement. The two obviously couldn't merge the two refinement fires in one go. Lin Yi had a lot of experience in this area, but the problem was that his experience was only suitable for super refinement fire bombs, so it wasn't convenient for him to talk about it. As for demonstrating it on the spot, it was even more impossible. They couldn't even control the temperature and strength of the refinement fire. Wouldn't they just embarrass themselves? And you guys study it well. The flag of refinement in the Archean martial world will depend on you guys from now on. Lin Yi nodded with the air of a grandmaster, and after a few words of encouragement, he gave the two of them the experience he had prepared. Grandmaster, you're too courteous. With you here, the flag of refinement will never belong to us brothers. Ma Zedong took the thin stack of papers and smiled so widely that her eyes couldn't be seen. She was still complimenting Lin Yi. Lin Yi didn't explain much, and waved his hand to let them go. Anyway, they would naturally know that Lin Yi had left the Archean martial world in the future. However, with Yu Yi, Primordial Invincible, and Shengguan Feixing, the three nascent soul stage masters, even if they knew that Lin Yi wasn't there, they wouldn't dare to betray the Green Cloud sect. After sending the two away, Lin Yi didn't have time to talk to Lingshan. The communication bead that Languza gave him in his pocket lit up. Obviously, Languza was looking for him. They had only been separated for a short while, and Languza had already returned to the depths of the endless sea. Lin Yi was confused. He could only inform Lingshan and fly to the sea near the Green Cloud sect in the north, and put the communication bead into the sea. After coming into contact with the water of the endless sea, the communication bead immediately emitted a dazzling light. A shadow of Languza appeared in front of Lin Yi. Boss, this is the location of the Green Cloud sect in the north? That's great. It's quite close to where I am now. Wait for me, I'll be there soon. Languza's image laughed loudly as he spoke to Lin Yi with a face full of enthusiasm. That's right. Lin Yi smiled and said, Why are you looking for me so soon? Have you already returned to the clan and met your people? Languza shook his head and said, Not yet, but I've already contacted the clan. Snake Shichiro did a good job this time and told them about your contributions. So the clan told me to invite you to our clan's land as a guest. Invite me to your clan? Lin Yi found it strange. Normally, didn't the sea beasts hate human practitioners? Boss, this is an invitation from our sea serpent king himself. You can't just give him face. Otherwise Languza won't be able to go back in the future. Languza was obviously happy that the sea serpent king invited Lin Yi. After all, this was a gift from Lin Yi for saving Languza. It indirectly showed that the sea serpent king cared about Languza. As for whether this was the real situation, it would have to wait until he returned to see the situation. Lin Yi thought for a while and didn't refuse. Although he planned to return to Heaven Island in a few days, he still had to leave some time for the sea serpent king. He could also discuss with the sea serpent king about the sea beast cores in the future. All right, then I'll take the liberty to go with you. How much longer until you arrive? Lin Yi looked back in the direction of the Green Cloud sect and saw a disciple in the distance. He waved his hand at him. Before the disciple came near, Languza already replied, I'm already here. Boss, do you see me? Chapter 5644. As expected of a mutated mystic early phase sea serpent, its speed in the sea was even faster than flying spirit beasts. Whoever was targeted by it in the endless sea wouldn't be able to escape its clutches. Lin Yi didn't expect Languza to come so quickly. He wanted to ask this Blue Cloud sect disciple to call Lingshan and Wu Qintian over to talk to them, but it seemed like it was too late. He could only ask this disciple to tell them where Lin Yi went so that they wouldn't worry. After receiving Lin Yi's order, the disciple immediately turned around and went back. Languza also came to the shore at almost the same time and laughed at Lin Yi. Boss, you didn't wait too long, right? I used all my strength to come here, I'm sorry. Actually, you didn't have to use all your strength to come here. Lin Yi smiled and shook his head, but what he said was the truth. I didn't want to let you wait too long. Plus I wanted you to see the place of the Sea Serpent clan as soon as possible. So I was a bit impatient. Let's go now. Languza scratched his head with his front claws, looking simple and honest. He didn't look like a mystical early phase sea beast at all. I knew you would be in a hurry, so I didn't go back to say anything. Lin Yi wasn't surprised at all. Looking at Languza's speed just now, he knew that this guy wouldn't let Lin Yi dawdle here. Languza laughed and turned to Lin Yi. Boss, get on my back. Because it's a bit far, flying spirit beasts aren't as fast as me. It's best if we can go back as soon as possible. Alright, then I'll have to trouble you. Lin Yi didn't refuse and directly jumped on Languza's back. He was in Yuan spirit anyway, so he didn't need to worry about dying in the endless sea without flying spirit beasts. At most he could fly by himself. Besides, with Languza, he definitely wouldn't encounter any danger in the endless sea. It's my Languza's honor to be able to carry Boss on my back. Boss, sit tight. We're leaving now. Then, Languza arched his body and shot out like lightning, directly diving into the endless sea, leaving a 7-meter-high waterline behind as he quickly disappeared into the distance. Lin Yi stood on Languza's broad back and didn't feel any bumps, but he still maintained a very high speed. In the blink of an eye, the Blue Cloud sect of the North Island became a black dot on the horizon and finally disappeared. Languza, your Sea Beast clan seems to be very united. When we rescued you this time, the entire endless sea was rioting. Lin Yi's consciousness noticed that some of the sea beasts avoided Languza when they saw him. They waited respectfully for him to pass before continuing their actions. Lin Yi said this casually. Languza laughed and said, Boss, you're wrong. There's no such thing as unity in the endless sea. It's just the law of the jungle. Because the sea beast royal family is at the top of the food chain, no sea beast dares to disobey the orders of our royal family. So it's a high-handed rule. Lenny nodded thoughtfully. In this case, it seemed much easier to let the people in the ancient small Jianghu buy the inner pellets of the sea beasts with a part of the spirit jades or other tools. Of course, hunting sea beasts was also a way to cultivate. As long as the sea beast royal family didn't care, they could choose to do so. Boss, you can say that, but we prefer to say that the strong are respected. In the endless sea, the strong are respected and worshipped. I heard that the human clan also has such a tradition, but compared to our endless sea, perhaps there's still a gap. Languza said proudly. Lenny was silent. The sea beasts in the endless sea usually seem to be loose, and the royal family didn't often manage them. However, when it was necessary, they could mobilize more than 90% of the sea beasts in the shortest time. On the contrary, the human clan seemed to have a strict hierarchy. For example, in the ancient small Jianghu, there were the 4 big ones and 10 small ones. However, once something happened, the probability of each sea beast clan fighting alone, or even stabbing others in the back, was 80 to 90%. Lenny shook his head. This idea just flashed through his mind. Although it was a little heavy, it wasn't something he should consider now. Languza, if I say that we need a batch of sea beast dawn at the gold core stage, or even the nascent soul stage every year, will it cause a dispute between the human clan and the sea beasts? Although he knew that it was unlikely, Lenny still needed to confirm it. Sure enough, Languza shook his head and said, Boss, if you need it, of course there's no problem, but I don't know if the quantity is large. If it's too large, it might be a little troublesome. Lenny calculated in his heart. The spirit jade immortal veins dawn could be hunted by each sect. After all, the rules had been set, and they couldn't be too comfortable. Now the sea beast dawn that they wanted to exchange for were mainly used to refine elixirs. Ma Zayden, the head of the 5 Elements sect, had received the True Qi Dan Fire Heart chant and related notes on alchemy from Lenny. It would definitely improve the level of alchemy in the 5 Elements sect by several levels, so the demand for sea beast dawn would certainly increase. Completely relying on hunting sea beasts couldn't meet this demand, so Lenny had to prepare for a rainy day. Every year, we need about 2,000 to 3,000 inner dawn. The ratio between the nascent soul stage, the gold core stage, and the foundation establishment stage should be 1 to 3 to 6. Lenny reckoned that if these inner dawn were used to refine elixirs, it should be enough to supply the development needs of the small ancient underworld, so he didn't have the nerve to say more. Languza turned his head and said in astonishment, 2,000 to 3,000 inner dawn, so little? Then there's no problem. I thought boss wanted more than 100,000 inner dawn. Lenny was speechless. Only now did he remember that his little brother was one of the members of the Endless Seas royal family, and was definitely a local tycoon. A mere 2,000 to 3,000 inner dawn was indeed nothing in his eyes, but Lenny didn't intend to change his mind. In any case, it was fine as long as it was enough. The small ancient underworld might not have enough to exchange for more. Boss, why don't you ask for more? In any case, although we sea beasts also like to eat inner dawn, it takes a long time to digest one inner dawn. It's far less efficient than eating meat directly. In the entire endless sea, tens of thousands of sea beasts die of natural causes every year, let alone those that die unnaturally. Languza really didn't regard Lin Yi as an outsider, and told him about this matter in detail. Lin Yi faintly smiled and said, Let's talk about this later. As long as we can reach an agreement with your sea beast clan, someone will naturally be responsible for purchasing. I'm just asking about this possibility first. Chapter 5645. Languza said straightforwardly, All right then. In the future, when you need dawn, just send someone to find me. I will definitely get it done for you. Originally, Languza wanted to say that he would give Lin Yi a batch of dawn. However, looking at Lin Yi's expression, it seemed that they wanted to cooperate for a long time. Therefore, he didn't say anything definite. After all, he was only a junior in the royal family, so his words didn't have much power. All right, I will have to trouble you in the future, Lin Yi said politely. Although Languza had recognized Lin Yi as his boss, he was still a member of the royal family of the sea beasts. Before he had a deeper understanding of his character, Lin Yi wouldn't casually order Languza around. Boss, you are too polite. If you didn't save me, I would only have this dawn left. Languza laughed and said frankly, to be honest, if I had enough power, it wouldn't be a problem to give you a batch of dawn every year. Unfortunately, as a member of the royal family, I am just a marginal character who can't say anything in the clan. Can't say anything and still make the entire endless sea riot? Lin Yi asked curiously. After you were kidnapped, didn't the royal family mobilize all the sea beasts to rescue you? Being able to have such a formation, you should be an important member of the clan, right? Languza shook his head and said carelessly, Boss, you don't understand our sea flood dragon clan. As the overlord of the endless sea, if a member of the clan was kidnapped and we didn't do anything, wouldn't our prestige be ruined? So, instead of saying that it was to save me, it was to save the face of the royal family. You sound so pitiful. If it was really like this, you wouldn't have invited me over, right? Lin Yi didn't think that Languza would lie, but he still analyzed it for him. Languza laughed and said, That's true. I didn't expect the patriarch to suddenly invite you over. Maybe it's because Snake Shichiro said a lot of good things about you? After a slight pause, Languza continued, Boss, I am actually the third in line to the throne, but my mother is a sea snake. So in terms of bloodline, I am not particularly pure, so I have never been valued by the clan. But don't worry, boss. If anyone dares to make things difficult for you, I, Languza, will not let them off easily even if I have to die. Lin Yi was slightly startled. Previously, Languza had been speaking in a relaxed and casual tone, but the last few sentences revealed a rare sense of seriousness. It seemed very serious. Obviously, Languza wasn't a fool. He thought that Lin Yi might not have a smooth journey, so he let Lin Yi be mentally prepared in advance. At the same time, he also expressed his determination to protect Lin Yi. Without waiting for Lin Yi to speak, Languza laughed and resumed his previous tone. Boss, you are a rare distinguished guest. Look at me talking about useless things. Let me introduce the scenery of the endless sea to you. Since Languza had changed the topic, Lin Yi cooperated and didn't say anything more. Instead, he talked about various things in the endless sea with Languza. After half an hour, Languza caught up with Snake Shichiro and his team of sea beasts. After greeting Snake Shichiro, Lin Yi and Snake Shichiro met up and continued their journey to the deep part of the endless sea. With the addition of Snake Shichiro, Languza's conversation became more and more lively. It also let Lin Yi know that, according to the human's words, Snake Shichiro could be considered as Languza's cousin, because Languza's mother was an elder of Snake Shichiro's tribe. No wonder Snake Shichiro and Languza got along so well, playing together since they were young. It turned out that there was such a layer of relationship. After half a day, this team arrived at a small island in the deep part of the endless sea. This was where the king's palace of the Sea Flood Dragon tribe was located. Boss, don't be fooled by this small island. In fact, the part under the sea is very big. That's the main part of the palace. It's a pity that I can't take you to visit it this time. Unless the patriarch personally gives the permission, outsiders are forbidden to enter. Languza turned his head and said to Lin Yi with a regretful expression. Lin Yi didn't care about it. He didn't come here to visit the Sea Flood Dragon Palace, so he smiled and said, It's okay. It's good enough to be a guest on the island. Languza, you don't need to worry about it too much. Hey, isn't this Languza? You're finally back. Only you could be captured by the human race. What a shame. If I were you, I definitely wouldn't have the face to come back. Before Lin Yi and Languza could get on the island, a sea flood dragon appeared nearby and ridiculed Languza. Originally, Lin Yi thought that this was Languza's tribe coming to welcome Languza's return. Now, it seemed like he was thinking too much. Languza snorted and said bluntly, Lan Guli, don't waste my time here. I don't want to argue with you today. Get lost. Hey, your temper seems to have increased. Is it because I haven't taught you a lesson for so long that you've forgotten the pain? Lan Guli glanced at Languza disdainfully. As if he had suddenly noticed Lin Yi, he pointed his claw at Lin Yi and said, "You actually let a human sit on your back? Languza, you're really promising." In the simple hierarchy of the sea beasts, those who could carry others were existences of low status. For example, back in Ruin's town, the sea crab that carried Snake Shichiro was merely a means of transportation. Now that Languza had allowed Lin Yi to stand on his back, it was tantamount to placing himself in a lowly position. To Languza, Lin Yi was his boss, so there was no problem with him doing this. However, in Lan Guli's eyes, Languza was ruining the reputation of the sea serpent tribe. Despicable human, get off Languza's back immediately. Although this bastard is also a despicable thing, he's still not someone a human like you can compare to. Lan Guli shouted at Lin Yi unceremoniously. He didn't care if he was hurting Languza's reputation. How dare you? Who are you calling despicable? Do you believe that I won't kill you? Languza instantly exploded. He propped up half of his body and shouted at Lan Guli. Lan Guli was also a direct descendant of the Sea Serpent King and could be considered as Languza's cousin. However, his bloodline was pure, and his talent far surpassed that of the previous Languza. Now that he had the strength of a nascent soul stage cultivator, although he was the fourth successor, he had never regarded Languza with any importance. Chapter 56-46. Lan Guli laughed heartily. Yo, you're really ambitious now. You actually dare to challenge me. Looks like it's been too long since I've dealt with you, that you've forgotten who you are. As Languza did not reveal his profound ascension initial stage aura, Lan Guli still thought that Languza was still the same Languza, that he could do whatever he wanted. However, he did not know that what Languza said was the truth. Due to the new and old hatred, he really had the intention to kill Lan Guli. If it wasn't for the fact that the Sea Serpent clan had very few members, and that it was forbidden for the clansmen to kill each other, Languza might have already been killed by Lan Guli. However, because of this rule, he could only forcefully suppress the killing intent in his heart. Snake Shichiro stood awkwardly at the side and did not dare to interrupt. He was also a relative of the Sea Serpent clan, and he had a trace of the Sea Serpent bloodline in him. However, the dispute between these two members of the Sea Serpent clan was not something that he could interfere in. Lin Yi did not mind. He knew that there was no true Sea Serpent clan in the entire Sea Serpent clan. Currently, the strongest one was only at the profound ascension stage. After mastering the method of using divine sense to execute martial techniques, Lin Yi could already ignore all opponents below the mountain opening stage. We humans have a saying, a good dog doesn't block the way. Languza, looks like the Sea Serpent clan's royal clan does not know this. Lin Yi's expression did not change as he spoke indifferently. However, these words were like the fuse that ignited a barrel of explosives. Languza reacted quickly and laughed. Boss, don't mind him. Even in our Sea Serpent clan, there are some uneducated people who like to look for trouble. Lan Guli was instantly enraged. This damned human compared him to a dog, and Languza even said that he was uneducated. This was simply intolerable. With a sharp howl, Lan Guli did not waste any more words. He soared into the sky from the sea and attacked Languza and Lin Yi. This was not the first time he had bullied Languza, so there was really nothing for him to worry about. Lin Yi snorted coldly. He did not give Languza a chance to make a move. With a wave of his hand, he unleashed a beam of 5 elements killing chi. The 5 elements killing chi unleashed by his divine sense was completely different from the 5 elements killing chi unleashed by his Yuan Shen. Languza's vision blurred for a moment before he was sent flying by the tremendous force. His slender body straightened up, and with a flash, he plunged into the distant sea like an arrow, causing a huge splash. Boss, you're so awesome. I've wanted to do this for a long time. Languza laughed heartily. Although he couldn't personally take revenge, Lin Yi's actions made him feel extremely refreshed. Let's go, we'll head to the island first. Lin Yi casually waved his hand. Such a domineering move was just to show his attitude. Those who came were guests, and the one who invited Lin Yi was the Sea Flood Dragon King. Not just any Tom, Dick, or Harry could jump out and humiliate Lin Yi. As long as they dared to jump out, Lon Gully would be the best example. Snake Shichiro understood Lin Yi's meaning. Therefore, he looked at Lin Yi with reverence. This human was truly ruthless and confident. He was probably the only one who dared to come to the Flood Dragon Island to establish his might, right? Once they reached the island, Lin Yi jumped off Languza's body. Although Languza did not mind, Lin Yi also had to consider the way others looked at Languza. On this point, Lon Gully's words were not wrong. Damned human! How dare you sneak attack me? Lon Gully's furious roar came from behind. Clearly, he hadn't learned his lesson from the previous attack. Lin Yi frowned slightly. After hearing the commotion over here, there were already quite a few sea serpents gathering here. Adding Lon Gully into the mix wouldn't be enough, but the commotion would only get louder and louder. Where did this human come from? The Flood Dragon Island does not welcome you. Scram immediately. The sea flood dragon that came first raised its head and roared at Lin Yi with a stern expression. Lon Gully arrived on the island at the right time and blocked Lin Yi with the sea flood dragon that came later. He glared at Lin Yi viciously. After noticing that a few of his clansmen had come over, Lon Gully's heart was filled with confidence. Indeed, he didn't see how Lin Yi attacked him just now. Although he was sent flying, it didn't cause any substantial damage. At most, it was just a little pain. Lon Gully was indeed afraid of Lin Yi. However, he would not be afraid to this extent. He had also heard that the humans in the ancient underworld had never surpassed the profound ascension stage of the nascent soul great circle. At the same level, sea beasts were stronger than humans. Not to mention, he was the king of the sea beasts, a sea flood dragon. To be sent flying by Lin Yi, he must have underestimated his opponent. Moreover, this human must have used some shameful method to do so. Lon Gully's mind spun rapidly. Finally, he came to this conclusion. Humans, scram off the Flood Dragon Island. Otherwise, don't blame us for being impolite. Another sea flood dragon joined in and berated with a stern expression. In fact, they had received a notice and knew that Languza would bring a human to the island. Therefore, they came to stop him. Otherwise, if a human came up, they would have killed him without a second word. Why would they have the time to be so noisy? Languza said angrily. Boss Lin Yi was invited by the patriarch. Which one of you dares to chase him away? Are you all trying to rebel? The sea flood dragons were stunned. Because they knew that Languza wasn't lying, they didn't know how to continue. Were they going to let them off just like that? Then why did they come to stop him? Do you think the patriarch invited him just because you said so? Do you have any proof? He's just a lowly human. What right does he have to be invited by the patriarch? Lon Gully said with a laugh. He continued to mock Lin Yi. Lin Yi was speechless at this kind of idiot who didn't learn from his mistakes. He simply sent out another wave of 5 elements killing chi, and sent Lon Gully flying again. This time, Lin Yi's attack was slightly heavier. If it was the previous perfected Dunan, he might have vomited blood and suffered serious injuries. However, the sea flood dragon's strong body helped Lon Gully avoid injury. After rolling a few times on the ground, he came back as if nothing had happened. However, there was a hint of fear in his eyes when he looked at Lin Yi. I was invited by your sea flood dragon king as a guest. If you don't believe me, go back and ask your king. Or should I say, is this how you sea flood dragons treat your guests? If that's the case, then this Flood Dragon Island isn't worth my visit. Lin Yi sneered. When he said the last sentence, his face was full of disdain and contempt for the Flood Dragon Island. Chapter 5647. We don't know if it's true or not. We'll let you guys on the island for now. If it's all nonsense, then don't even think about leaving this place alive. Lon Gully pretended to be unyielding. Unfortunately, he was already feeling a little guilty in front of Lin Yi, so his words didn't sound imposing at all. Among these sea serpents, Lon Gully was probably the leader. Hence, when he spoke, the other sea serpents didn't say anything else. They could only let Lin Yi and the rest swagger onto the island. When Languza left, he purposely snorted at Lon Gully. Then, he raised his head high with a proud look on his face. Being able to see Lon Gully being slapped away twice made him very happy. In the center of Serpent Island, there was a huge sea dragon palace. The style was rather rough. Obviously, this wasn't something the sea serpents were good at. In Lin Yi's eyes, it was simply frighteningly simple. Within his divine sense, the palace under the island that Languza had mentioned was also partially detected by Lin Yi. It still had the same style, but because of the beautiful underwater scenery as a natural decoration, it was very interesting. Serpents weren't the only ones on Serpent Island. There were also some other sea beasts as servants. Lin Yi, Languza, and Snake Shichiro were brought to a huge palace without walls. They sat at a stone table that had been prepared beforehand. After the sea beast that led the way left, only Lin Yi and the other two were left in the spacious palace. The sea breeze blew against them, and they looked at each other speechlessly. Other than being huge, this palace was actually more like a pavilion, right? After a short while, the Sea Serpent King finally came out. He didn't bring any other serpents with him. Languza looked at Lin Yi awkwardly. Although the Sea Serpent King had personally come out, other than him and Snake Shichiro, there weren't any other guests. This banquet was a little shabby. Grandfather. Languza stood up and bowed respectfully. Sea Serpent King only nodded slightly, and did not say anything else. Snake Shichiro followed. Snake Shichiro pays his respects to the Dragon King. Although he was only a Jiao dragon, being called a Dragon King made him happier. Therefore, the Jiao Dragon King smiled and said, Snake Shichiro, you did a good job this time. Languza is lucky to have a friend like you. You flatter me, Dragon King. This is what Snake Shichiro is supposed to do. Snake Shichiro was flattered and said modestly. The Sea Serpent King said a few words of encouragement before turning to Lin Yi. You're Lin Yi, right? I heard from Shi Lang that you've contributed a lot this time. That's why I invite you to the Flood Dragon Island as a guest to thank you. The delicacies of the endless sea are not easy to be eaten by your human tribe. Please don't be too polite. Lin Yi frowned slightly. This Jiao Dragon King's words were polite, but his tone was condescending. He was the king of the endless sea, so it was normal for him to be arrogant. But why did he look down on him with such a tone? Thank you, Dragon King, for your invitation. Lin Yi cupped his hands and thanked him, neither servile nor overbearing. Since the Serpent King had such an attitude, Lin Yi had a pretty good idea of what was going on. The Sea Serpent King nodded and didn't say much to Lin Yi. He turned to Snake Shichiro and said, Snake Shichiro, you've contributed a lot this time. Your ancestors are also from our Jiao Dragon tribe, so I won't mistreat you. From now on, you will be the Prince Commander of the Endless Sea's Lotus Luo Sea. Do well, I have high hopes for you. Snake Shichiro was overjoyed and hurried to express his gratitude. Snake Shichiro thanks my king for your grace. From now on, I will go through fire and water for the prosperity of the royal family without hesitation. The so-called Prince Commander was basically a member of the Sea Beast royal family. Although the Lotus Luo Sea wasn't big, with this title, Snake Shichiro could be considered to have entered the core of the Endless Sea's upper echelons. If Snake Shichiro could transform into a sea serpent, he could use this title to advance further and truly integrate into the core circle of the Sea Serpent clan. Very good. With such a young and promising descendant like you, our Sea Beast clan won't have to worry about not having the opportunity to develop and prosper. The Sea Serpent King said gently. He then turned to Lin Yi and said, As for our human friend, do you have any rewards you want? Because you're not a member of our Sea Beast clan, the position in the Endless Sea doesn't mean anything to you. What he meant was that Lin Yi could just ask for some benefits and go home. Don't expect to get the true recognition of the Sea Beast clan. Lin Yi frowned again. This Sea Serpent King ignored him, but he's getting angry? Rewards? Who does he think he is? If it wasn't for Languza's face, who would care about this old Sea Serpent King's face? But thinking that he would only be staying for a short while, there was no need to fall out with the Sea Serpent King. Hence, Lin Yi didn't want to bother about the Sea Serpent King's attitude. It was enough as long as he achieved his goal. Sea Serpent King, I don't need your rewards. This time, I'm only here to reach an agreement with the Sea Serpent clan. Lin Yi said faintly. He only emphasized the word reward, implicitly expressing his power. As the savior of Languza, Linny wasn't a servant of the Sea Serpent clan. He didn't need the Sea Serpent King's rewards. The Sea Serpent King narrowed his eyes. He could naturally hear some clues from Lin Yi's words. To be honest, the Sea Serpent King really looked down on Lin Yi. This invitation was just a formality to save face for the Sea Serpent clan. Grandpa, this human is too arrogant. He actually wants to discuss a deal with our Sea Serpent clan. What a joke. As soon as Linny finished speaking, Lon Gully and the other Sea Serpent King entered the hall. With the Sea Serpent King present, Lon Gully regained his confidence. Hence, he immediately interrupted Linny. The Sea Serpent King turned to look at Lon Gully and the other Sea Serpent King. Lon Gully, don't talk nonsense. This is Languza's benefactor. Hence, he has the right to ask for something. The other Sea Serpent King glanced at Languza and Linny with disdain. He then bowed to the Sea Serpent King. Grandpa, grandsons have come to disturb you. It's all right. Lon Gully, since you're here, come and sit with us. It's also good to accompany our human guests. The Sea Serpent King said amiably. Lon Gully was a genius of the Sea Serpent clan. At a young age, he evolved from a sea serpent to a sea serpent dragon. Chapter 56-48. Lon Guao thanked him, then sat down with Lon Gully. He then looked at Lin Yi and said, Human, don't think that just because you saved Languza once, you can negotiate with the sea serpent race. Even if you overestimate yourself, there should be a limit. What status do you think you have to be on equal footing with the sea serpent race? Languza angrily said. Lon Guao, what status do you think you have? This is a conversation between Grandpa and Boss Lin Yi. What qualifications do you and Lon Gully have to interrupt? Enough. Shut up. The Sea Serpent King growled, cutting off Languza's words. He also stopped Lon Guao and Lon Gully from continuing. Human, tell me your request first. This king said that he would reward you. As long as it's not too excessive, this king can satisfy your request. Honestly speaking, Linny had basically given up on hope. At most, he would just have to go hunt sea beasts. But since the Sea Serpent King had said so, whether or not it worked out, he still had to mention it. I hope to be able to exchange 3,000 sea beast cores with the Sea Serpent race every year. The ratio is 300 nascent soul, 900 golden core, and 1,800 foundation establishment. I wonder if Sea Serpent King is willing to agree? As for what he would give in exchange, Linny didn't even mention it. If the Sea Serpent King had this intention, then he would naturally continue the negotiations. If he didn't, then everything else was useless. As expected, the Sea Serpent King didn't even ask about Lin Yi's conditions. He directly refused. Impossible. The cores of our sea beast race will never be given to a human, let alone 3,000 per year. Seeing that you've saved Languza, I'll give you 30 sea beast inner elixirs when you return later. The ratio will be as you've suggested. Linny was enraged. 30 cores? Was he trying to send a beggar away? During the sea beast rampage and the battle on the island, Linny had single-handedly killed 2,000 sea beasts. Why would he care about a mere 30 sea beast cores? What was worse was that when Lin Yi and Languza were chatting about this matter, Languza also told Lin Yi that hundreds of thousands of sea beasts died of natural causes in the endless sea every year. Several thousand inner dawn were just a drop in the ocean. For the sea beasts in the endless sea, where the strong were respected and the weak were prey to the strong, it didn't matter whether these inner dawn were given to humans or not. But now, the Sea Serpent King had rejected Lin Yi's proposal and wasn't even willing to listen to Lin Yi's conditions. This was simply too much. Sea Serpent King, I'm not asking for your nadins for free. The humans of the ancient Jianghu use spirit jades or other items to trade. For both sides, this is a win-win situation. Why can't you accept it? Linny suppressed his anger and said coldly to the Sea Serpent King. There is no why. The Sea Serpent King said indifferently. The sea beasts are all noble. Even if it's an inner core left behind after a natural death, it's not something humans can easily touch. So whatever you say is useless. There's no need to talk about this anymore. This argument was simply ridiculous. Did this old thing think that if they didn't trade, Lin Yi and the humans of the ancient Jianghu wouldn't be able to get the inner dawn? At most, they could just kill more sea beasts. The Sea Serpent King would rather the sea beasts of the endless sea be killed than exchange the inner dawn of the sea beasts that died of natural causes. In Lin Yi's eyes, he was simply a stupid king. Ah, is this the sincerity of the Sea Serpent King? All right, just pretend that I didn't say anything. Lin Yi sneered. It seemed that he couldn't communicate with this Sea Serpent King anymore. The Sea Serpent King also sneered. Human, don't think that just because you're Languza's savior, you can threaten the Sea Serpent King. Grandpa, why would Boss Lin Yi want to threaten us? He just wants to exchange for a bit of inner dawn every year. There's nothing wrong with that. Languza very loyally argued for Lin Yi. Unfortunately, he completely didn't understand the Sea Serpent King's thoughts, so there was no result. The Sea Serpent King didn't even need to speak. Lan Guao and Lan Guli both angrily rebuked. Languza, remember your identity. You actually have the nerve to call a human boss here? What a disgrace. Boss Lin Yi saved my life. What's so shameful about me calling him boss? On the contrary, it's you two who are fanning the flames here that's even more shameful for the Sea Serpent King. Languza also threw caution to the wind and roared, not backing down even half a step. The Sea Serpent King unhappily shouted, Enough! What are the three of you doing? Restrain yourselves a little. The Sea Serpent King was quite displeased that there was internal strife in front of a human like Lin Yi. He didn't like Languza to begin with, and now all his dissatisfaction was directed at Languza. However, he didn't seem to have any intention of blaming Lan Guao and Lan Guli at all. Lin Yi laughed coldly in his heart. Languza really wasn't talking nonsense. His position in the Sea Serpent King was indeed quite awkward. He was the third-in-line successor in name, but he didn't receive the slightest bit of attention. With the Sea Serpent King's favoritism, Lan Guli immediately said arrogantly, Grandfather, Languza is really a disgrace to the Sea Serpent King. Perhaps something happened to Languza after he was captured by the humans. Grandfather, please allow me to investigate and see if Languza was sent back as a spy by the humans. Snake Shichiro's expression also turned ugly. This idiot's imagination was quite wild. He could come up with anything. If that was the case, didn't that mean that Snake Shichiro had also colluded with the humans? Unfortunately, even though Snake Shichiro was a prince commander of the Lianluo region, he didn't have the right to speak in this situation. He could only lower his head angrily and curse Lan Guli in his heart. Lan Guli, that's enough. I didn't hold it against you when you bullied me all this time. However, if you insult me and Boss Lin Yi again, I definitely won't let this matter rest. Languza pointed at Lan Guli and roared. This made the Sea Serpent King even more displeased. Oh my, you're saying that you didn't hold it against me when I bullied you all this time? You sure sound confident. Looks like I should thank you for showing mercy. How about this? You better show me what you're capable of and hold it against me. Show me if you don't let this matter rest. Lan Guli said with a mocking expression. He was very clear about Languza's strength. Chapter 5649. Languza couldn't take it anymore, and directly shot out from behind the table. His monstrous aura completely enveloped Lan Guli, as he appeared in front of him in an instant. Lan Guli's expression immediately changed. At this time, Languza's profound ascending early stage aura was completely exposed. How was this the early stage nascent soul that he could easily bully? But it was too late to realize now. Although the early stage profound ascending early stage and the nascent soul great circle seemed to only be one level apart. The difference between this one level was like the distance between heaven and earth. When a sea serpent matured and evolved into a flood dragon, this was the greatest manifestation of this level. Lan Guao was right beside Lan Guli. After discovering Languza's strength, he was also greatly shocked. However, he was also a profound ascending early stage expert, so he wouldn't just watch as Lan Guli was attacked. Under Lan Guli's horrified gaze, Lan Guao teleported in front of him and forcefully blocked Languza's attack, forcing Languza to retreat. After all, Languza's strength had just been forcefully raised by the center. Although Lin Yi's treatment had caused him to mutate, that only increased his potential. His current strength and experience were far from Lan Guiao's, so it was normal that he couldn't gain any advantage in one move. The Sea Serpent King originally allowed Lan Guli to teach Languza a lesson. He didn't expect that Languza would turn the tables and teach Lan Guli a lesson. For a moment, he looked at Languza in shock and didn't say anything. Lan Guiao narrowed his eyes and looked deeply at Languza. He nodded slightly and said, "You're actually also at the profound ascending early stage. I really didn't expect this. Since you have the qualifications to challenge me, then I'll give you a chance today. As long as you can beat me, I'll speak up for you in front of grandfather. How about it?" All along, Lan Guiao had looked down on Languza. Not to mention the difference in strength, he was firmly above Languza in terms of succession, not to mention the difference in status in the Sea Serpent King's heart. To put it bluntly, an early nascent soul stage Languza didn't even have the qualifications to enter Lan Guiao's line of sight. In other words, Lan Guli, who was ranked behind Languza, and whose strength surpassed Languza, had always been thinking of ways to deal a blow to Languza. But now, when Languza displayed strength that wasn't inferior to Lan Guiao's, and he hadn't even transformed into a sea serpent, Lan Guiao couldn't help but take him seriously. He naturally wanted to find out the truth about Languza. The Sea Serpent King had a calm expression on his face. That short exchange just now couldn't even be considered a test. But with his eyesight, he was sure that Languza wasn't Lan Guiao's opponent. Since Lan Guiao had this intention, he would pretend not to hear it. Who asked Lan Guiao to be his favorite grandson? Languza hesitated for a moment. Because Lan Guiao had never treated him as an opponent and didn't bully him like Lan Guli. Or rather, he didn't care to bully him. Therefore, Languza didn't particularly hate Lan Guiao. Right now, he could only look at Lin Yi and see if Lin Yi had any suggestions. Lin Yi faintly smiled and lightly nodded at Languza, indicating for him to agree. Since the current Sea Serpent tribe didn't have a good impression of the human race, perhaps supporting Languza to take the lead wasn't a bad choice. If Lan Guiao jumped out himself, it wouldn't be a bad idea to let Languza show off. When Languza saw that Lin Yi also agreed to let him go, he immediately threw away all his worries and said, "All right, then let me experience the power of our Sea Serpent tribe's genius. If I'm lucky enough to win by half a move, I hope you, Lan Guiao, will keep your promise. Do you think I'll go back on my word for such a small matter?" Lan Guiao looked at Languza with disdain and said, "Only a guy like you would take it seriously. Cut the crap and come." "All right." Languza roared and shot towards Lan Guiao like a bolt of lightning. Although he knew that he might not be Lan Guiao's opponent, Languza didn't show the slightest bit of fear. His indomitable aura was quite astonishing, and even Lan Guiao couldn't help but put away his underestimation and face Languza's attack seriously. Both sides had the intention to fight it out, but Lin Yi didn't want to waste any time. He secretly used his divine sense to activate a martial skill, summoning a bolt of lightning that accurately struck Lan Guiao's head. Lan Guiao, who was caught off guard, was struck to the ground by the lightning and started to twitch uncontrollably. Although this strike wouldn't take his life, it was enough to temporarily immobilize him. Languza was also stunned by this situation, but he immediately understood that Lin Yi was secretly helping him. If it was someone with an inflexible personality, they might think that Lin Yi's actions were an insult to the spirit of a duel. But Languza felt that his boss was always right. It was only right and proper for him to help him. What was so strange about that? Taking advantage of the fact that Lan Guiao was unable to move, Languza bluntly sent him flying. This could be considered as his victory in this competition. Lan Guli was dumbfounded. What the fuck was going on? Lan Guiao was actually defeated in an instant? That lightning martial skill was so domineering. This fellow Languza had actually grasped such a powerful technique. Who would dare to bully him in the future? He wouldn't be the one being bullied instead, right? On the other hand, the Sea Serpent King, who was sitting at the head of the table, saw that Languza was slightly stunned when the lightning appeared. and thus deduced that the lightning technique that Lan Gueo used in the attack was not from Lan Guja. The most suspicious person was, of course, the expressionless Lin Yi. This human really wasn't simple. The Sea Flood Dragon King looked deeply at Lin Yi, thinking in his heart. Lin Yi was able to activate a martial skill right under his nose without him noticing anything. His strength could be considered unfathomable. For a person like this, offending him too much wasn't a wise thing to do. The endless sea was a place where the strong preyed on the weak. The strong were respected. This was an unchanging rule, so the Sea Flood Dragon King's thoughts changed quite naturally. Lan Guli, go see if Lan Gueo is injured. Take him to get some rest. The Sea Flood Dragon King made up his mind and sent Lan Guli away. Coincidentally, Lan Guli was also feeling a little fearful when he saw Languza. Being able to leave was exactly what he wanted. Hence, he quickly agreed and hurriedly left the place. When Languza saw this, the resentment he felt from being bullied finally dissipated. He turned to the Sea Flood Dragon King and said, "Grandpa, Lan Gueo promised me that he would speak up for me. Although he's not here anymore, you heard about this, right?" Chapter 5650. Okay, I'll send someone to contact Snake Shichiro. Lin didn't thank Sea Serpent King. After all, Languza was the one who fought for this deal. It had nothing to do with Sea Serpent King. If that's the case, I'll send Snake Shichiro to escort you. No human has ever set foot on Serpent Island. You're the first and hopefully the last. Sea Serpent King directly gave the order to send the guest off, and clearly expressed that he didn't want Lin Yi to come back. Although he didn't want to offend Lin Yi, Sea Serpent King obviously didn't want to be friends with Lin Yi. His contempt and hostility towards humans had already penetrated deep into Sea Serpent King's bones. Being able to treat Lin Yi like this was already very good. "Grandpa, I hope to go out with Boss to gain some experience. Anyway, I have nothing to do on Serpent Island. Maybe I can complete my transformation faster if I follow Boss." Languza saw that Sea Serpent King was about to send Lin Yi away, so he quickly made his request. The Sea Serpent King looked at Languza and hesitated for a moment. He had never paid much attention to this grandson of his. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that he was dispensable. If it wasn't for the sake of the Sea Serpent tribe's reputation, Languza's death wouldn't be a big deal. But now that Languza had reached the early stage of mysterious ascension, he was a rare and important combat power for the Sea Serpent clan. Especially since Languza hadn't evolved yet, Sea Serpent King actually had some expectations for him. Considering that Languza's current strength was completely because he went to a human territory, perhaps following Lin, he could really increase his strength. Plus, Sea Serpent King still didn't like Languza that much. So after thinking for a while, Sea Serpent King nodded and agreed to his request. "Thank you, Grandpa." After receiving an affirmative answer, Languza thanked him happily, and then brought Lin Yi and Snake Shichiro to the beach under the island. Lin Yi's purpose of coming here had also been achieved. Although the process wasn't pleasant, at least he didn't come for nothing, so he was in a good mood. After leaving the hall, Lin Yi smiled at Languza and said, "Languza, it's all thanks to you this time." "Boss, what nonsense are you spouting? If not for you, how could I have taught Lan Gueo and Lan Guli a lesson so easily? To be honest, I didn't help much. In the end, it was all thanks to you, boss." Languza laughed. He was in a good mood. Sea Serpent King's bad attitude towards Lin Yi was out of their control, so they tacitly did not mention it. Lin Yi also stopped talking about who contributed more. Instead, he talked to Snake Shichiro about the deal. In fact, when Lin Yi was here, there was no need for any deal at all. No one would say anything if they just took it. However, Lin Yi was about to leave the immemorial underworld. At that time, Snake Shichiro would definitely have no objections. But it was hard to guarantee that the other sea beasts wouldn't take the opportunity to make things difficult for Snake Shichiro. Therefore, it was better to trade for a long time. In the end, this matter still depended on Xianigia and the others. After Lin Yi finalized the contact information, he could leave. "Languza, I will leave the immemorial underworld in a few days. There's no point in you following me. Why don't you go to the Lien Luo Sea with Snake Shichiro? After talking to Snake Shichiro, Linny said to Languza. Languza said indifferently, Boss, I will follow you wherever you go. If you want to leave, then we can leave together. It's not a big problem. Linny was speechless. Didn't this guy hear that he was leaving the immemorial underworld? Still following him? Languza, when I said I want to leave the immemorial underworld, I meant to leave this space and go to another world. Linny could only explain it simply in case Languza really didn't understand. However, Languza said excitedly, Isn't it better to go to another world? I don't want to stay in the endless sea for a long time. Boss, you must bring me along. You can't go. Linny wanted to bring him to the heavenly island, but Linny himself was projected here with his primordial spirit. It was impossible for Languza to go there. Boss, if you can go, I can go too. Languza said firmly. He had made up his mind to rely on Linny. Linny felt a headache coming on. He couldn't explain it in a short amount of time, so he decided to let the guy tag along for now. He'd understand why Linny could go, but he couldn't when he got back. Thinking of the heavenly island, Linny suddenly thought of the relationship between the various sects in the immemorial underworld and the various forces on the heavenly island. Thus, he changed the topic and said, Languza, let me ask you something. Your sea dragon clan should be able to survive for a much longer time than the human clan. Do you know if there were any major changes in this world a long time ago? Languza said with a dumbfounded expression. Boss, I'm so young. How would I know about things that happened a long time ago? Linny was stunned. Was there a definite relationship between being young and knowing about things that happened a long time ago? Even a primary school student in the secular world knew about 5,000 years of history. Forget it. This guy looked like he wasn't cultured. It was better to ask Snake Shichiro. Linny did as he thought. Ignoring Languza, he turned and asked, Has Snake Shichiro heard of such things? There should be similar legends or records in the endless sea, right? Snake Shichiro laughed dryly and said, That actually, our sea beast clan has never had the habit of recording things. As for legends, everyone basically just saw their prey go up and eat their fill. There's nothing to talk about, right? Linny felt that it was a waste of time to ask them this kind of question. It was better to ask each sect to check if there were any records about this after they returned to the Jadian sect. When it came to cultural inheritance, humans were indeed many times more powerful than the sea beasts. There was no comparison between them at all. After leaving the Sea Dragon Island, Languza still carried Linny on his back. Snake Shichiro, on the other hand, brought his subordinates to the Lien Luo Sea to take up his post. After they separated, Languza's speed suddenly became much faster. The time needed to return to the Jadian sect was also greatly shortened. During the 2 days that Linny was away, Exai and Igia, and the disciples who participated in the immemorial grand meeting returned with great rewards. After receiving the news of Lin Yi's return, a large group of people rushed out to welcome him. Chapter 56-51. Exai and Igia shook his head blankly and said, I've never heard of it. Do you have any impression of it, Vice Head Hong? Lin Yi also turned to look at Hong Zijuan. After all, he was the former head of Qing Yun sect, while Exai and Igia was just an ordinary gold core stage elder, and the one at the bottom. There was no comparison between the two. Hong Zijuan frowned and thought for a while, then said uncertainly, If Granduncle wants to ask, I seem to have heard of this legend, but it's just a legend, there's no clear record. Lin Yi's eyes lit up. He didn't have much hope, but he didn't expect Hong Zijuan to really have heard of it. His interest was immediately aroused, and he signaled Hong Zijuan to continue. Hong Zijuan didn't dare to neglect. Lin Yi was not only the pillar of Qing Yun sect, but also the leader of the entire ancient small Jianghu. Anything that could interest Lin Yi, whether it was a legend or not, he had to tell Lin Yi in detail. Martial ancestral uncle, disciple heard that around 10,000 years ago, an enormous calamity had indeed occurred in the primeval world. The specific situation is already impossible to verify now, And the only thing we know is that all the sects and clans at that time were practically annihilated, and the people that survived were less than 1 in 100. Moreover, they were all disciples at the lowest level of the clans. Hong Zijuan spoke very slowly. After all, it wasn't something important. He didn't even remember it completely, so he needed to sort out his memories while speaking. Lin Yi wasn't in a hurry. He listened and thought at the same time. He felt that this statement was very likely to be the truth. At that time, in the ancient small Jianghu, there were powerful people at the profound ascension stage or even higher. But in that catastrophe, all the cultivators above the nascent soul stage disappeared. In the entire ancient small Jianghu, there hasn't been a single profound ascension stage cultivator since. Lin Yi frowned slightly. He suddenly thought of the God-controlling bracelet on his hand. According to Zhao Dan, he and Yin Chunqing found it in a cave house thousands of years ago. At that time, there was also a profound ascension stage sea beast's inner core. It seemed that the cave house was left tens of thousands of years ago. He wondered if there were any clues left behind there. Lin Yi was a little hesitant. Should he let Zhao Dan bring him to the cave to have a look? But he'd thought about Sky-class Island and Ziyu's request. If this wasn't too important, then he'd go the next time he came back. He'd decide before he left. If that's the case, then the inheritance of the ancient small Jianghu should have been broken at that time, right? Lin Yi asked casually, as he was thinking about something. Hong Zijuan nodded and said, "It should be, because it was said that all the sects were destroyed at that time, and all the masters were missing." Although the surviving disciples rebuilt their sects, the cultivation methods and martial skills they obtained were incomplete. Perhaps this is the reason why there were no profound ascending stage cultivators from that time onwards? Lin Yi nodded slightly, but he believed that the lack of inheritance was only one of the reasons why there was no profound ascension stage. Another reason was that from that time onwards, the small Jianghu had lost the method and way to advance to the profound ascension stage with the help of the Thunder Tribulation. However, this method still existed on the Heavenly Island. Perhaps it existed on the ancient small Jianghu as well, but these people didn't notice it. It was evidently Xianijia's first time hearing about this legend, and he was listening with great interest. He suddenly asked, "So you're saying that Grand Master is a powerful person from 10,000 years ago?" Xianijia had long believed that this Grand Master Lin Yi wasn't from the ancient small Jianghu, but after hearing this legend, he wasn't so sure anymore. I'm not that old." Lin Yi was about to leave the ancient small Jianghu, and he didn't need to hide his background anymore. He smiled and said, "I come from another plane, and the sects there are similar to the ancient small Jianghu. Their arts are the same as well, so there should be a connection. I come from the Green Cloud sect of the North Island, so I'm indeed your Grand Master." Xianijia and Hong Zijuan looked at each other, both surprised and happy. They had accepted the possibility that Lin Yi was a primordial spirit from 10,000 years ago, but now they heard that Lin Yi came from another plane. Both of them thought of the legendary powerful people who disappeared almost at the same time. Could it be that they were from another plane? And because they had the complete mantra and martial arts skills, they re-established their own sects and forces? Thinking of this possibility, both of them were instantly excited. If they could go to that plane, wouldn't they be able to meet many seniors from their sects? From Lin Yi's strength, it could be inferred that the development over there was definitely much more powerful than the ancient small Jianghu. After a brief mention, Lin Yi didn't want to say more. If he could open up the passage between the Heaven Stage Island and the ancient small Jianghu, then it would be meaningful to tell Xianijiya and the others in detail. It was useless to say more now, and it was necessary for them to develop the ancient small Jianghu. Although Xianijiya and Hong Zijuan were very curious about where Lin Yi came from, they didn't dare to ask since Lin Yi didn't want to say more. They could only suppress their thoughts and discuss with Lin Yi about the details of the transaction of the spiritual jade immortal vein and the inner elixir of the sea beasts. After talking about the transaction of the spiritual jade immortal vein and the inner elixir of the sea beasts, Lin Yi suddenly thought of something and asked, "Have you heard of the Azure Valley?" There's a plant called the amethyst lotus there. It's said to be the best material to rebuild one's physical body. Lin Yi had always appeared in front of people with his primordial spirit. Therefore, Xianijie and Hong Zijuan didn't doubt him at all when he asked about the amethyst lotus. They naturally thought that Lin Yi wanted to rebuild his physical body for himself. With his current strength, he would be even more powerful if he had a physical body. Xianijie said first, I've heard of the amethyst lotus, but I don't know where it is exactly. It's only now that Grand Uncle Master mentioned the Azure Valley that I know it's here. May I know the exact location of the Azure Valley? We, the Blue Cloud sect, will definitely try our best to find the amethyst lotus for Grand Uncle Master. Lin Yi thought to himself, why would I ask you if I know the exact location? Moreover, the amethyst lotus was not for Lin Yi's own use. Xianijie obviously misunderstood, but he didn't intend to explain. Chapter 56-52. Oh, Zijuan, where did you hear about Blue Sky Valley? Tell me more. Lin Yi looked at Hong Zijuan with interest. He didn't expect Hong Zijuan to know so much. He was a talent in this aspect. Hong Zijuan was happy to see Lin Yi's interest. There were not many opportunities to show his presence in front of Lin Yi, so he treasured it very much. Replying to Grand Master's words, Disciple also heard about the Blue Sky Valley at an ancient grand meeting more than 10 years ago. At that time, Disciple had just become the head of Jadian sect not long ago, and coincidentally heard them mention it at a gathering of the 10 minor sect heads. Hong Zijuan wanted to say that he knew about Blue Sky Valley, but unfortunately, his information was very limited, so he could only provide such a clue. Lin Yi nodded and said, I see. In that case, there should be records about Blue Sky Valley among the 10 minor leaders. Zijuan, do you remember which clan's leader said that? Hong Zijuan said regretfully, I can't remember clearly, because I wasn't familiar with the leaders of the 10 small sects at that time, and the topic of Blue Sky Valley was just a passing thought, so I can only remember this much. I guess they don't know the specific location of Blue Sky Valley, or else there would be news of it after so many years. Lin Yi thought for a moment and said, All right, let's not talk about this for now. Ijia, send a notice to the 4 big and 10 minor leaders, and ask them to send a senior to Jadian sect. I still need to give them an explanation for my leaving, so that there won't be any unnecessary trouble. Also, I need to explain to them about the spiritual jade immortal vein, and the sea beast inner Dan. Yes, Grand Master, I'll arrange it now. Xianijie replied respectfully. Although the archaic event had just ended, and the 4 big and 10 minor leaders had just dispersed, they knew that it was Lin Yi's arrangement, so they probably wouldn't have any objections. Lin Yi wanted to ask if anyone knew the location of the Blue Sky Valley. For Lin Yi, the ghost was both a teacher and a friend. If he could find the purple mist black lotus, it would be a very good thing for both Lin Yi and the ghost. Hong Zijuan saw that Lin Yi did not seem to have anything else to ask him, so he left with Xianijie. Xianijie went to inform the Big 4 and the 10 kids, while Hong Zijuan went to arrange the reception for the Big 4 and the 10 kids. This time, as long as they could successfully summon the 4 big ones and 10 young ones to Jadian sect, then Jadian sect's position as the leader of the ancient small Jianghu would be unshakable. Previously, it was only a de facto leader, but after this matter, there would no longer be any problem in name. On the second day after Xianijie sent out the notice, Ma Zedong and Chun Biden from 5 Elements sect were the first to arrive at Jadian sect. After they left Jadian sect, they were still studying the true Qi alchemic fire along the way, so they didn't fly too far. After receiving the notice, they came back immediately, even earlier than Rising Heaven sect and Xuanji sect. Uncle Master, do you have any instructions for this disciple recruitment? Ma Zedong brought Chun Biden to greet Lin Yi as soon as they could, bowing respectfully. Lin Yi waved his hand. It's nothing special. Didn't I say that I'll be leaving the ancient Jianghu for a while? That's why I gathered everyone here to announce it in front of everyone. I don't want people to think that I'm gone. Ma Zedong immediately said passionately, Don't worry, Grand Master. If anyone wants to make trouble at Jadian sect while Grand Master is away, our 5 elements sect will be the first to deal with them. If they want to deal with Jadian sect, they have to destroy our 5 elements sect first. That's right, our 5 elements sect has received great kindness from Grand Master. No matter who it is, don't even think about touching a finger of Jadian sect. Chun Biden also echoed loudly. Judging from their expressions, it didn't seem like they were just being perfunctory. Speaking of kindness, the mental cultivation method and alchemy experience that Linny taught them were indeed priceless treasures for the 5 elements sect. It was normal for Ma Zedong and Chun Biden to be grateful. But more importantly, Linny wasn't in Jadian sect, but there was still Yue, a mysterious ascending stage powerhouse. Looking at his performance in the ancient grand meeting, he wasn't as easy to talk to as Lin Yi. Ma Zedong and Chun Biden weren't fools, of course they knew how to choose. In addition to Jadian sect's own strength, there were also powerful allies like Immemorial Invincible and Shengguang clan. Ma Zedong didn't think that anyone would take things too hard and casually come to provoke Jadian sect. Taking the opportunity to express their loyalty, there was absolutely no risk. Linny nodded with a smile and said, "Since you can think like this, my expectations for you guys have not been in vain. Alright, there's something I want to ask you guys." "Martial uncle, please ask. Disciple will definitely tell you everything I know," Ma Zedong said without hesitation. Anyway, there were no secrets in 5 elements sect that couldn't be revealed. Those core secrets were just the mental cultivation method of alchemy. Linny didn't care about it at all. It's like this. Have you heard of purple mist lotus? Although it's used to reconstruct the body, it can also be regarded as a kind of elixir. Perhaps your 5 elements sect has records about it? Hong Zijuan said that he heard the news at the gathering of the 10 minor sect masters. But as one of the big 4, Linny felt that Ma Zedong might have more detailed information. If it's purple mist lotus, is it the blue sky valley near the river of divine knowledge? Sure enough, Ma Zedong just thought for a little bit and accurately said a few key words. Yes, it's the blue sky valley. Do you know the specific location of the blue sky valley? Lin Yi's eyes lit up and immediately asked. I'm sorry, martial uncle, disciple really doesn't know, Ma Zedong said with a face full of regret. This was a rare opportunity to please Lin Yi. He really felt that it was a pity, so after thinking about it he continued. Legend has it that the Blue Sky Valley is near the River of Divine Knowledge, but people who have gone to look for the Blue Sky Valley have never found any clues, so disciple thinks that there should be some kind of restriction in the Blue Sky Valley, the kind that people who don't know will never find. This is very likely. Linny was a little disappointed in his heart, and nodded casually. Forget it. If there's a chance, I'll look for it again. Ma Zedong said with hesitation. Martial uncle, disciple doesn't know whether I should say it or not. About the Blue Sky Valley? Linny looked at Ma Zedong strangely, and said indifferently. If you have something to say, just say it, I won't blame you. Chapter 56-53. Linny smiled faintly and said, I know what you're talking about. It's just some poisonous gas. What's the big deal? 20? It'll be fine. No, martial uncle, you're wrong. Ma Zedong raised her head and said seriously, the poisonous gas is indeed fatal to cultivators. But for the primordial spirit, it's like purgatory. If ordinary people breathe in the poisonous gas, there may be some buffer time. But if the primordial spirit and primordial spirit are slightly contaminated, they may immediately disappear. There's such a thing. Linny was also stunned when he heard this. He really hadn't heard of this. Did Jiu Ing and the water lotus deliberately hide it? After thinking for a while, Linny guessed with uncertainty. Is this characteristic because of the existence of the amethyst lotus? Ma Zedong shook her head and said, Disciple doesn't know. These are all legends, but the possibility of what martial uncle said is very high. This is because the amethyst nefarious lotus is the best material to reconstruct the body. Those who need the amethyst nefarious lotus are naturally powerful primordial spirits. So it's not strange for it to have special properties that specifically target primordial spirits. Chen Biden also interjected and advised, if Marshall Uncle wants to rebuild the body, you really don't need to go to the Blue Sky Valley and take the risk. Although the amethyst lotus is the best material, there are other things that can be replaced. Even if the effect is not as good as the amethyst lotus, at least the risk is not as high. Thank you for your concern. I will consider this matter. Lenny smiled faintly and thanked the two. If he was the one who wanted to rebuild his body, he wouldn't have put so much effort into it. But since he was preparing it for the ghost, he had to prepare the best when he had the chance. Is the matter about the Blue Sky Valley and the amethyst lotus recorded in your sect? Lenny asked casually. If there were records in the ancient books, he might be able to find more clues. It was a pity that Ma Zedong also said that it was a rumor that happened many years ago. She even forgot where she heard it from. Lenny was helpless. He could only let the two of them have the opportunity to inquire more about this and find a substitute for the purple mist black lotus. If it didn't work, at least they could have a backup plan. In the evening, people from Soaring Sky Sect and Xuanji Sect arrived. This time, Xuanji Sect did not make it into the top 10 youngsters. However, due to their relationship with Blue Cloud Sect, they were still informed. As for the two sects from the North Island Alliance, Lenny had nothing to say. Since Blue Cloud Sect had made it to the North Island Alliance, based on Exanijia's temper, he would definitely drag these two brother sects along with him. At night, the people from the Snow Sword Sect had also arrived. They were Bing Wuqing and Lung Lung. The two of them had originally come to the Blue Cloud Sect to look for Lin Yi, so after settling the matters of the Snow Sword Sect, they immediately came over. The moment Bing Wuqing saw Lin Yi, she uncharacteristically asked, "Boss, I heard that you're leaving the primordial underworld? Let me go with you." Lin Yi was startled. "You want to leave with me? What about the Snow Sword faction? The Snow Sword faction is counting on you now." Although the top 4 youngsters and top 10 youngsters had basically been integrated by Lin Yi, it was hard to say if there would be any changes after he left the primordial underworld. The Thousand Blades faction was so powerful in the past. It was precisely because of the disappearance of the primordial undefeatable underworld that they declined to the point where they could not even make it into the top 10 youngsters. "It's all right. I'll make the arrangements," Bing Wuqing said rather firmly. Lin Yi smiled and shook his head. "All right, although I'd like to take you with me. It's a pity that you can't go to the place I'm going this time." Lung Lung looked like she wanted to say something but stopped herself. Finally, she could not help but ask, "Where are you going?" Lin Yi turned around and saw the anticipation in Lung Lung's eyes. Although this girl did not say it, it was obvious that she wanted to go with Lin Yi. "This time, I'm going back to where I came from. I can't take you there now. When I find a way next time, I'll come and take you there." Lin Yi did not need to hide anything from Bing Wuqing and Lung Lung, so he simply told them about the existence of Heaven Tier Island. Like Exinijie and the others, although they were shocked and curious about the situation on Heaven Tier Island, Bing Wuqing was not a talkative person, so she did not ask much in the end. However, Lung Lung knew about the existence of Heaven Tier Island, because Lin Yi had told her a story before. She thought it was just a story, but later she found out that it was Lin Yi's true identity. After the three of them talked for a while, Bing Wuqing and Lung Lung were dragged away by Lingshan, Wu Chintian and the others. These were considered old friends, and there was no estrangement between them. On the other hand, Lin Yi continued to receive people from other sections. This night, a few people from the 10 small sects came, including the Calamity Master of Qingquan sect. Calamity Master should have hated Lin Yi to the core, but in the face of Lin Yi's strength, Calamity Master wisely chose to compromise, so he was very respectful this time. Lin Yi was not a ruthless person. Since Calamity Master had given in, he no longer had the intention to go against Qingquan sect. At noon the next day, it was the time that Exinijie had set for the 4 big and 10 small sections. At the last moment, everyone had arrived, including Lin Yi's hardcore supporters, the Shangguan clan, the Thousand Blades sect, the Chu family, the Yiling sect, etc. Lenny did not have the chance to talk to them one by one, so he greeted them first, and found another time to talk to them later. The banquet prepared by Hong Zijuan started on time. All kinds of exotic delicacies were served up like flowing water, but no one paid attention to the food. The immemorial grand meeting had just ended and Jadian sect had once again gathered the higher-ups of the 4 big and 10 small sections. There must be something important to announce, and it would be related to all the sections. This matter was of course much more important than the food. Lenny stood up from his seat of honor and said, "Today, I have invited all the sect masters, family heads, and elders here because I have a few things to announce. There are some details that I need everyone to discuss together. Thank you all for your hard work. Master Lin, you're too kind. What's so hard about these small things? You're too kind, Grand Master. Just let us know if there's anything you need. Elder Lin, please speak your mind. We're all ears." All of a sudden, all the sect's higher-ups expressed their agreement. It was only after Lin Yi raised his hand and gestured for them to quiet down. Chapter 56-54. This was also very important for the trade of sea beast cores later, so Lin Yi emphasized this point. Other than the matter of the Ling Yu Immortal Meridian, the second thing is about the sea beast cores. 2 days ago, I went to the land of the Sea Beast King and saw the king of the sea beasts, the patriarch of the Sea Dragon clan, the Sea Dragon King. This is a sea dragon at the peak of the late stage of the mysterious Ascension realm. His real combat power is probably many times stronger than ordinary mysterious Ascension realm cultivators. He should be infinitely close to the early stage of the mountain opening realm. Hearing Lin Yi's words, everyone couldn't help but take a deep breath. Originally, the mysterious Ascension realm was already a legendary level, but this Sea Dragon King was already equivalent to the early stage of the mountain opening realm? Wasn't he almost at the level of a legend? Lin Yi waved his hand and said indifferently, "There's nothing strange about the Sea Dragon King's strength. I'm saying this to let you know what kind of existence there is in the deep sea of the sea beasts. If you hunt sea beasts in the future, don't go too deep, and it's forbidden to attack the royal family of the sea beasts. Because other than me, all the humans in the ancient small Jianghu can't bear the anger of the royal family of the sea beasts." In fact, Lin Yi's words also indirectly hinted at what he was going to say next. In the future, Lin Yi would not be able to participate in the sea beast hunt, so this warning was still necessary. After everyone had digested this information, Lin Yi then said, "After seeing the Sea Dragon King, I reached an agreement with the royal family of the sea beasts. Every year, we will use human resources to exchange for a batch of sea beast cores. The number is 3,000. But this batch of cores will not be used to supply the quota for the Ling Yu Immortal Meridian, but will only be given to the 5 Elements sect to refine pills. If there's a need for pills, find the Blue Cloud sect to provide resources in exchange for the ratio of the cores. As for the specific details, you can ask Xi and EG yourself later." Compared to the strength of the Sea Dragon King, the exchange of the cores was simply nothing. But after everyone realized this, they also knew that this was an extremely important opportunity, not inferior to the quota for the Ling Yu Immortal Meridian. With the alchemy ability of the 5 Elements sect, it would be difficult for them to consume all 3,000 inner cores of sea beasts within a year. It was impossible for them to have extra energy to accept alchemy commissions for other scattered inner cores of sea beasts. In other words, although there would be a large number of pills in the ancient small Jianghu in the future, they would basically be in the hands of the sects that participated in the exchange. In order to get the pills, other than participating, they would have to pay 10 times, or even tens of times the price afterwards. Lin Yi hadn't thought about this before, but in fact, after exchanging the pellets, this was the natural development. Since the Azure Cloud sect had control of this exchange channel, the 5 Elements sect was completely tied to the Azure Cloud sect's chariot, which meant that they had a monopoly on the entire ancient Jianghu's elixir supply. If any sect didn't want to join in, the final development would only be widened by the sect in front of them, and eventually, they would be ruthlessly eliminated. After understanding this layer of cause and effect, everyone had made up their minds to get a certain share of this batch of cores no matter what. Fortunately, Linny originally planned to develop the ancient small Jianghu, so Xianijia would not deny them this opportunity. The last thing is my personal matter. I didn't intend to say it, but I should inform everyone here. Linny gathered these people to announce his departure. Of course, he would not end it so easily. The higher-ups of the 4 big and 10 small sects put aside their calculations and listened to Linny carefully. Today, Linny was fully deserving of the number 1 person in the ancient small Jianghu. Every move he made would affect the development of the entire ancient small Jianghu. For example, the exchange of the pills just now. Therefore, Lin Yi's so-called personal matter, for them, must not be treated as a personal matter and ignored. Now that the ancient small Jianghu has been reshuffled, the power structure has taken shape and gradually stabilized. Moreover, we have reached an agreement with the sea beasts. As long as we don't go too far in killing, we won't offend the sea beasts. Therefore, there won't be any impact if I leave at this time. The personal matter I mentioned is to take this opportunity to say goodbye to everyone. Martial uncle, where are you going? Shangguan Qingyin was the first to stand up and asked in surprise. Shangguan Qingyin came late, so he had not had the time to talk to Linny privately. Otherwise, Linny would have told him the truth instead of standing up and asking questions. Linny smiled faintly and casually said, I'm going to investigate the center. Although the center's base at Keiluo Mountain was destroyed, the core people were not caught. If they are not eliminated, they will always be a problem in the future. The clue I got is that they have temporarily left the ancient small Jianghu, so I'm going with them. So that's how it is. Martial uncle is really benevolent and righteous. I, Shangguan Qingyin, am willing to follow martial uncle to eliminate the remaining forces of the center. Shangguan Qingyin praised and immediately proposed to act with Lin Yi. Shangguan Feixing was by Shangguan Qingyun's side. Of course, he knew the reason why his father suddenly became a mysterious ascension stage. If he had the chance to follow Lin Yi, he would definitely not lose out. Master Lin is really chivalrous, working hard for the peace of the ancient small Jianghu. I am also willing to follow Master Lin and eliminate the remaining forces of the center. Elder Lin's righteous act is really touching. We are all willing to follow Elder Lin and contribute our own strength. Linny suddenly sweated. He did not expect that the random excuse he found would make them so excited. It seemed that having too much prestige was not always a good thing. Thank you for your support, but this matter does not require too many people, because the center is best at hiding their tracks. So having more people may not be a good thing. On the contrary, if I am alone, I will have the greatest freedom and mobility, and it will be easier for me to find traces of the center. What do you all think? Linny glared at Shangguan Qingyin and gestured for him to sit down and not cause trouble. Then, he appeased the people who wanted to follow him. In fact, these people might not really want to follow Lin Yi to kill the people of the center. After all, they were all the big shots of their respective sections. Chasing after people was too time-consuming. If it was not for the fact that they wanted to respond to Lin Yi, they would not have joined in the fun. Chapter 56-55. Facing such a situation, Linny could only smile and nod his head. He then changed the topic. Alright, now that we're done here, everyone please eat your fill and enjoy the delicacies that we, the Green Cloud sect, have prepared for you. Please don't stand on ceremony, and enjoy to your heart's content. The crowd roared in response, and they exchanged toasts with the people they were familiar with, starting to discuss the 3 things Lin Yi had mentioned. After raising his cup to everyone, Lin Yi excused himself from the banquet hall and called Shangguan Feixing and his son, as well as Primordial Invincible and Ling Tianyu to come out. Among the 4 great sects, 5 Elements sect was the first to know that Lin Yi was going to leave. He had said all that he needed to, so now Lin Yi wanted to communicate with these 2 sects alone. After all, they were one of the most powerful forces that Lin Yi had left in the immemorial underworld. In the quiet room that had been prepared in advance, Lin gestured for the four of them to sit down and said, "It's true that I'm leaving the immemorial underworld this time. But it's not for the reason that I said just now. Of course, I'll investigate the matter at the center, but the real reason is that I'm going back." "Going back? Boss Lin, where are you going? To the secular world?" Ling Tianyu was the first to ask. Among the four of them, his relationship with Lin was indeed the best. Lin looked at Ling Tianyu in surprise. All along, Ling Tianyu had been calling him Brother Lin or Big Brother Lin. He didn't expect that he would suddenly call him Boss Lin. Was he influenced by Bing Wuqing? However, Lin didn't intend to correct Ling Tianyu. With his current status in the immemorial underworld, if Ling Tianyu continued to call Lin brother, Primordial Invincible would probably not agree. Therefore, letting Ling Tianyu interact with him as Lin Yi's little brother was the best protection for Ling Tianyu. Primordial Invincible had no objections to Ling Tianyu's title. Being able to become Lin Yi's little brother was already a great honor for Ling Tianyu. In fact, it was Primordial Invincible's advice. It's not the secular world but another space plane. It's a place very similar to the small Jianghu in ancient times. However, the mysterious ascending stage cultivators, there are only ordinary cultivators. And the mountain opening stage is only the starting point of the giant realm. There are even more powerful existences there. But unfortunately, you can't go there for the time being. If there's a chance in the future, I'll look for a way to connect the two spaces and bring you guys along. Lin didn't reveal too much about the Heaven Step Island. In any case, they wouldn't know about it even if he told them now, so a simple introduction was enough. "No wonder you are so powerful. It turns out that you came from the upper space." Shangguan Feixing said with emotion. He wasn't too surprised about Lin Yi's origin, and even mentioned the upper space. However, Lin Yi himself didn't know whether the Heaven Step Island could be considered as the upper space of the small Jianghu in ancient times. If his speculation was correct, the Heaven Step Island should have been built by those legendary figures who disappeared in the small Jianghu in ancient times. Perhaps the Heaven Step Island was originally one with the small Jianghu in ancient times. But after the catastrophe 10,000 years ago, it was divided into two worlds. If this was the case, then there was no such thing as the upper space. Lin even thought that if the two worlds were one in the past, then it was very likely that there was a hidden space channel. Even if there wasn't, as long as one had enough strength, it wasn't impossible to open a space channel or build a transmission array between the two worlds. In short, they would definitely merge together in the end. Ling Tianyu revealed a trace of reluctance and said, "So Boss Lin, you can't bring people over? It would be great if I could follow you. My life, Ling Tianyu, was saved by Boss Lin. I don't know when we can meet again after you go back." Lin smiled and patted Ling Tianyu's shoulder, saying, "Don't show such an indecisive expression. Don't you want to revitalize the Thousand Blades sect? Then do it well. I might come back soon. When I come back, don't you still have no progress?" Ling Tianyu roused himself and nodded, saying, "Boss, don't worry. I definitely won't embarrass you. When you come back, the Thousand Blades sect will definitely become one of the four great sects." Lin patted Ling Tianyu's shoulder again and nodded without saying anything. Everything was understood without words. Turning his head, Lin said to Shangguan Feixing and Primordial Invincible, "The two of you are currently the strongest cultivators in the small Jianghu. From now on, the matters of the small Jianghu will need the two of you to take care of it. The Blue Cloud sect will also need the two of you to take care of it." Shangguan Feixing and Primordial Invincible hurriedly cupped their fists and bowed, saying, "You are too polite. This is what we should do. Actually, I'm not particularly worried. After all, there won't be anyone more powerful than you in the small Jianghu for the time being. However, it's easy to dodge a spear in the open, but hard to guard against a stab in the dark. No one can say for sure whether Qingkuan sect and Awakening Heavens sect will use tricks to deal with us. You have to be careful. Also I'll leave him to guard the Blue Cloud sect. But if I'm not around, this guy might occasionally go crazy. At that time, I'll need the two of you to keep him in check." Linny told them about his worries and concerns, especially about Yue. Without Shangguan Feishing and Primordial Invincible, the Blue Cloud sect wouldn't be enough for him to deal with. Yes, granduncle, please rest assured. We will be careful. The two of them promised respectfully. With this double insurance, Linny could really rest assured. All right, you all go out and have a good meal. When I'm about to leave, I'll say goodbye to you. Linny said with a smile and waved them out to eat. Then Linny sent people to find the people of Qingquan sect and Awakening Heavens sect respectively. He said a few words to them, and seeing that their attitudes were very good, he didn't say anything more. During this period, Duanmuyu quietly came to find Linny. Linny didn't hide it from her, and told her his real whereabouts. Although Duanmuyu was reluctant, she didn't feel too conflicted. She only asked Linny to come back as soon as possible, and find a way to bring her to Heavenly Island to have a look. Duanmuyu and Linny chatted for a while before getting up to leave. She also knew that Linny was very busy now, and it wasn't convenient to disturb him for too long. Although she didn't want to leave, she also didn't want to put Linny in a difficult position. She could only leave by herself. Chapter 56-56. When Zhao Xiaodan came in, Linny remembered the previous cave house. So he asked directly, Zhao Xiaodan, do you remember the cave house you mentioned the first time I saw you? It's the cave house where you got the god-controlling bracelet and the inner core of the sea beast. Zhao Xiaodan looked embarrassed and said, I remember, Senior Lin. Why do you want to ask about this again? Oh, I don't need to say anything about the first time I saw you. I was afraid that you would miss something in that situation. So now I want to ask you again to see if you have anything to add? Linny thought that at that time I used force to oppress you. You probably won't tell me the truth, so it's better to ask again. If I can find some clues in that cave house, maybe I can find a way to connect the Heavenly Stage Island and the ancient small Jianghu. Zhao Xiaodan became more and more embarrassed. He said that. Actually, Junior didn't lie. There's really nothing there, Senior Lin. You don't have to go. What's wrong with this Zhao Xiaodan? Does he not want to tell me? Linny looked at Zhao Xiaodan with some confusion. It shouldn't be. Zhao Xiaodan has completely surrendered to him. There's no reason for him to hide it. I didn't say I want to go, just tell me the details of this cave house, such as where it is, what the layout is inside, how big it is, and so on. Zhao Xiaodan stole a glance at Linny. His face was a little red and said, Senior Lin, it's best if you don't go. In fact, the first time, although I didn't lie, I did hide something. At that time, I deliberately kept you in suspense, just to arouse Senior Lin's interest, so that you would take the initiative to ask me about the cave house. Then I would take the opportunity to get rid of you. Linny raised his eyebrows and said, Oh? So that cave house is an extremely dangerous place. Do you think that if I go there, it's basically equivalent to suicide? Yes, that place is very dangerous, Senior Lin. If you go there, it's basically suicide. Zhao Xiaodan felt more at ease after saying it out loud. He simply continued. In fact, there's really nothing left in that cave abode. I acted like that just to lure Senior Lin to his death. Anyway, you went there yourself. Even if you don't die, you can't blame me, right? Linny smiled faintly and said, That's not important. What you did at that time wasn't wrong. I won't haggle over it. Now tell me, how dangerous is that place? Zhao Dan let out a sigh of relief. It was fine as long as Linny didn't care about it. After thinking for a while, he continued. It's like this. The space inside the cave was very big, but inexplicably, there would always be some thunder and lightning appearing out of nowhere. It was obviously in the cave, and I didn't know where the thunder and lightning came from, but the power was extremely strong. Linny frowned. Lightning appeared out of nowhere? This is a little strange. In fact, when we first went there was also a great perfection nascent soul grand elder from the Heaven Awakening sect with us. However, such a peak expert was killed by a bolt of lightning. That was the great perfection nascent soul grand elder. He was the top existence in the small immemorial underworld. He couldn't even resist it for a while. If it wasn't so, Cheetah and I might not have gone to the center for help this time, right? Zhao Dan said as he went astray. Lin didn't care about Cheetah and I, or the great elder of the Heaven Awakening sect. He was now concerned about the lightning that appeared out of nowhere. Wait a minute. Did you just say thunder and lightning? The thunder and lightning that appeared out of nowhere in the cave instantly killed a great perfection nascent soul grand elder? Lin Yi's heart surged with a feeling of absurdity. Did the people of the small immemorial underworld never know that they could actually advance to the profound ascension stage? In this kind of scene, Lin Yi's first reaction was the Thunder Plain Island on the Heavenly Stage Island. That was where the Thunder Tribulation was located to advance to the profound ascension stage. The cave that Zhao Dan spoke of. Why did it feel like the Thunder Tribulation used to advance to the profound ascension stage? That's right, this junior said so. Zhao Dan didn't know what happened to Lin Yi, so he could only nod and reply with a dumbfounded face. Lin Yi pondered for a moment, then said to Zhao Dan, "You have aroused my interest, now take me to the cave to have a look." Ah, Zhao Dan was dumbfounded. I said so much just to tell you not to go. How did it become arousing your interest? Can your interest not be so strange? Lin Yi didn't care what Zhao Xiaodan was thinking. He didn't plan on going at all, but after hearing Zhao Xiaodan's description, it was impossible not to go. Only by seeing it with his own eyes could he be sure that the place was as he imagined it to be. When Zhao Dan heard that Lin Yi wanted him to take him to the cave to have a look, he was dumbfounded on the spot. He clearly saw how the great elder of the Heaven Awakening sect died. That kind of terrifying feeling, Zhao Dan really didn't want to experience it a second time. Lin Yi glanced at Zhao Dan faintly and said, "What? You don't want to take me there?" Zhao Dan said with a sad face, "Senior Lin, didn't I say that that place is too dangerous? Why do you have to go there? That's thunder and lightning. For the primordial spirit, the same thunder and lightning will be more terrifying than hitting the body. You don't need to worry about this, you just need to take me there," Lin Yi said in an unquestionable tone. Zhao Dan knew that he couldn't change Lin Yi's mind, so he could only nod and agree with a bitter smile. "Wait a moment, I'll settle things here. Then go to the cave with you to have a look." Lin Yi planned to leave the primitive small Jianghu directly after seeing the cave, and not return to the Green Cloud sect in the North Island. So before leaving, he still had to say goodbye to everyone. Zhao Dan, of course, didn't have any objections. He thought to himself, "Take your time to settle down, I don't mind waiting. I don't mind waiting until the end of time, as long as you don't ask me to bring you there." Lin Yi had basically met with the representatives of the 4 big and 10 small schools, and everything he needed to do was done. So now he only needed to inform Xan Ijia and the others. Lin Yi didn't say that he was going to look for the cave. He said goodbye to Xan Ijia, Hong Ziju and Jin Weifeng, and the others, and went to find Lingshan and the others. Duan Muyu and Cold were also with them. Chapter 56-57. Lin Yi smiled. "Then I'll see how you perform. If you guys still don't improve, I'll fire you." "No way. That cruel? Boss, we're wrong, alright?" Wu Qintian's wackiness immediately washed away the faint sorrow of parting, and everyone burst into laughter. Lingshan came up and gave Lin Yi a big hug. Lin Yi's wives weren't here, so she was the one with the most power here. It wasn't easy to get a chance like this. Of course she wouldn't let it go. "You have to come back soon, the dummy girl's waiting for you." Lingshan's face was red as she whispered into Lin Yi's ear. Lin Yi hugged Lingshan back, smiling. "I will." Ziyu's eyes flickered a couple of times, waiting for Lingshan to leave Lin Yi's embrace. She rushed up and jumped into Lin Yi's embrace. "Lin Yi bro, you promised my brother you'd take care of me, but you've been throwing me aside this whole time. If you don't come back soon, my brother's going to tell on you when he wakes up." Ziyu hugged Lin Yi tighter, trying to come up with some random excuse, just so she could stay in this warm embrace a little longer. Lin Yi patted her head, smiling. "Alright, since when did you learn to act cute? This isn't like you at all." Ziyu humphed, too embarrassed to stay in Lin Yi's embrace any longer. She got up and stomped her feet. "I'm not joking with you. If you don't come back soon, I'll tell my brother." "Got it, I'll come back soon." Lin Yi smiled lovingly, patting her head. Thinking of her brother Armadillo, he couldn't help but feel sad. Also, Lin Yi bro, you have to find Chunxi soon. I miss Chunxi, Ziyu suddenly said, a little sad. She still hadn't heard from Chunxi yet. Lin Yi put away his smile and nodded solemnly. I'll find Chunxi for sure. Don't worry, I won't let her get hurt. Although he said that, Lin Yi didn't have much confidence. On Sky Class Island, Lin Yi's name wasn't at the top yet, but he was definitely famous. There was practically no one in the younger generation who could compare to him. Chunxi should have been able to find out about Lin Yi by now, but she hadn't been able to contact him. If it wasn't an accident, then he must have been teleported to an isolated place. No matter what, Lin Yi had to do everything he could to find Chunxi and the others. The more time passed, the higher the chance of accidents happening. Duanmuyu waited for Ziyu to finish before walking up and giving Lin Yi a big hug. She smiled. Take care, I'll wait for you with Lingshan, Ziyu and Lung Lung. Lin Yi nodded and patted Duanmuyu's back. You take care too, we'll see each other soon. After letting go of Duanmuyu, Lin Yi raised his head and looked at Lung Lung. Lung Lung turned her head away, but she was secretly observing Lin Yi's movements from the corner of her eyes. It was obvious that she wanted to bid farewell to Lin Yi, but her cold personality made it difficult for her to do so, and she didn't know what to do. Lin Yi smiled and pulled Lung Lung into a hug. He whispered in her ear, "Wait for me, it won't be long." When she was first pulled over, Lung Lung's body was still a little stiff. However, after coming into contact with Lin Yi's embrace, she quickly relaxed. After hearing Lin Yi's words, Lung Lung didn't know what to say. It seemed that all she could say had been said by the three people in front of her. Hence, she only let out a soft hum and quietly enjoyed the warmth before parting. Bing Wuqing, who was beside Lung Lung, had a cold expression on her face. She almost had the words "I don't need your hug" written on her face. When she saw Lin Yi's eyes turn to her, she immediately said expressionlessly, "Boss, I'll take care of Lung Lung. Don't worry and go." The corner of Lin Yi's mouth twitched. If he didn't know Bing Wuqing's character very well, he would really think that she had been possessed by Yue. How could she say such vicious words so naturally? But obviously, Bing Wuqing herself didn't understand what she said. In her opinion, she just said a very ordinary sentence, and it was all the truth. What was the problem? Yue held back his laughter. He thought to himself, "Little bastard Lin Yi, even your little brother hopes that you can go in peace. Then you can go in peace. Just leave everything in the immemorial underworld to master you." Of course, he could only think this in his heart. Yue didn't dare to say it out loud. Lin Yi could tolerate Bing Wuqing's unintentional slip of the tongue, but he would never let Yue go. Was this the difference between a little brother and a slave? Yue was almost angered by his own thoughts. Even if Lin Yi was beaten to death, there was no way that Lin Yi could understand this train of thought. Yue squeezed out a fake expression of reluctance and opened his arms to give Lin Yi a big hug. Lin Yi turned his head away and pushed his face aside with his palm. What a good feeling of parting, and a faint sadness. Why did he suddenly find Yue's expression so funny? He didn't realize that Yue looked so funny. No matter what, Lin Yi had bid farewell to everyone. Then, he brought Languza with him and went to the cave under Zhao Dan's lead. The location of the cave was an uninhabited island in the boundless sea. From the environment, it was somewhat similar to the Taishi Island. This also reminded Lin Yi that he still had a little brother of the Taishi spirit there. He didn't have time this time, but he would still go and have a look when he had the chance next time. During this period of time, Lin Yi had already refined 5 of the malignant tumors in his consciousness and was refining the 6th one. He had also eaten 6 consciousness fruits. This was also thanks to the Taishi spirit. Otherwise, these malignant tumors would definitely be a huge hidden danger for Lin Yi, and he didn't know when they would erupt. Senior Lin, this is the location of the cave. At the center of the island is the crater of a dormant volcano. There's a concealment spell there. Most people wouldn't be able to find any traces of the cave, even if they walked over there. Zhao Dan came here and felt a little guilty, but he still tried his best to introduce the place to Lin Yi. Chapter 56-58. Zhao Xiantian smiled bitterly and said, "Of course not. We just happened to come here by chance. We came here because the three of us formed a team to kill a nascent soul stage sea beast and wanted to find the five-element sect to refine a nascent soul golden pill. Although the Supreme Elder of the Heaven Awakening sect doesn't need the nascent soul golden pill, he owed Yin Chunqing a favor, and Yin Chunqing gave him a generous reward, so he came together. In the Endless Sea, there are countless islands like this. You guys are really lucky to be able to find this place." Languza chuckled as he spoke. For a member of the royal family of sea beasts like him, the number of islands he had seen could be counted in the tens of thousands. However, he had never heard of any abodes being discovered. Zhao Xiantian smiled apologetically and said, "We were really lucky. Because we were chasing a nascent soul stage sea beast, the three of us came to this island and followed the sea beast into the crater of the volcano. After triggering the restrictions, we accidentally entered the cave dwelling." He suddenly remembered that the blue flood dragon in front of him was a royal family of sea beasts. It didn't seem very good to say that they were chasing a sea beast, so Zhao Xiantian secretly looked at Languza. When he didn't see any strange expression on Languza's face, he let out a sigh of relief. As the two people and the flood dragon spoke, they arrived at the crater of the extinct volcano at the center of the island. Linny stood at the edge. Whether it was with his divine sense or his eyes, he didn't find anything strange. It was just an ordinary crater. Because there hadn't been an eruption for a long time, there was a thick pile of volcanic rocks inside, almost blocking the crater. Zhao Xiaotian pointed to a hidden spot at the mouth of the volcano and said, "Senior Lin, that place is the place that, when we were careless and touched it, the restrictions at the mouth of the volcano fluctuated slightly, allowing us to see the entrance of the cave inside. What's amazing is that before we triggered the restrictions, we couldn't find the entrance no matter how we looked. But once we saw it, we could easily enter." Lenny looked at where Zhao Xiantian was pointing. That location was blocked by a protruding volcanic rock. It was impossible to see it clearly from the crater. When Zhao Xiantian said that, he was obviously talking about hunting sea beasts. Because he was worried about Languza, he didn't say it in detail. Those who didn't know better would think that he was talking about when he peed. According to Zhao Dan's explanation, the sea beast that was being chased by the three of them should have escaped here and entered the crater to hide. Then, it accidentally touched the restriction, allowing them to discover the cave inside. Because of this, the Supreme Elder of the Enlightening Heavens faction directly fell inside. Indeed, fortune and misfortune came hand in hand. No one could say for sure whether they had encountered a fortuitous encounter or a crisis. "Thank you for leading the way. Now the two of us will explore it ourselves. You can go back now," Linny said to Zhao Xiaodan with a faint smile. He could also see that Zhao Xiaodan did not want to enter this dangerous cave again, so he did not force Zhao Xiaodan. Anyway, there was no problem as long as he could enter. Zhao Xiao felt relieved. If Linny wanted him to go in, he would risk his life to follow. However, since Linny was so considerate of his feelings, he would not force himself to go in. "Senior Lin, you are too polite. This is what I should do," Zhao Xiaodan said gratefully. Then, as if he thought of something, he said, "Oh yes, there is something I forgot to tell Senior Lin. Our evil warding sect has a vice sect master. Senior Lin should know him. His name is Fei Yangsheng. If Senior Lin needs our help in the future, and I am not in the sect, you can directly look for Vice Sect Master Fei Yangsheng." "Fei Yangsheng? He is already a Vice Sect Master?" Lenny nodded. He knew that Zhao Xiaodan was trying to curry favor with him. He didn't know where Zhao Xiaodan heard that Fei Yangsheng was also a follower of Lin Yi, so he directly promoted Fei Yangsheng to Vice Sect Master. Regarding this, Lin Yi didn't have any special thoughts. He smiled and asked about Fei Yangsheng's recent situation. Then he sent Zhao Xiaodan away. Lin Yi casually sent out a stream of pure energy, lightly hitting the position of the mechanism. As expected, the volcanic rocks in the crater started to ripple like water, forming circles of transparent ripples. As the ripples spread out, in between each circle, the volcanic rocks, and the image of a dark hole appeared. That should be the entrance to the cave abode. Let's go in. Linny turned and called out to Languza. Then, they directly rushed towards the entrance of the cave abode. Zhao Xiaodan was right. Linny and Languza successfully rushed into the cave abode. In front of them were two tightly shut bronze doors. These two doors were already covered with greenish-black copper rust. However, it did not affect the ancient and desolate aura it contained. It really is an antique. What's the use of these two doors? Languza mumbled to himself. Then he went forward and pushed with his two claws. He easily pushed open the two bronze doors. Because Zhao Xiaodan and the other two had been here before, there was no problem for the bronze doors to open easily. This was the reason why Linny felt at ease and let Languza open the doors. Boss, it's so dark inside. I can't see anything. If I had known this earlier, I would have brought a few night luminescent pearls from Flood Dragon Island. After the bronze doors opened, Languza went straight in. He didn't care about the dangers inside. Given his strength and the strength of his body, few people in the primordial underworld could hurt him. Linny followed him in unhurriedly, reminding him along the way, Languza, don't go in too deep. We don't know what dangers lie in there. You should come back and check out the situation first. Boss, don't worry. I know what I'm doing, Languza replied. However, he still didn't have any intention of coming back. He just slowed down his pace a lot. It seemed like he wanted to wait for Linny to come back. Linny released his divine sense. Although he was in the darkness, his divine sense wasn't blocked. Therefore, it didn't affect Linny too much. It's so empty inside. It seems like there's really nothing left. Linny came to Languza's side and said as they continued to walk forward slowly. Languza laughed and said, Boss, even if there was something here, it must have been taken away by Zhao Xiaodan. That's why it looks so empty. Chapter 56-59. Hey boss, do you smell anything? Languza suddenly stopped, turned his head and sniffed around. Linny was speechless. You are a sea serpent, not General Weiwu. Why are you acting like a big dog? However, looking at Languza's solemn look, Linny also sniffed subconsciously, but he did not find any special smell. Even if there was, it was the smell of seawater on Languza's body. What do you smell? Linny also stopped, and his divine sense searched more carefully, but he still found nothing. I can't tell what this smell is. It's faint but somewhat familiar. Is it the nightin of a sea beast? Languza stretched out his claws and scratched his head, saying with some uncertainty. He heard Linny mention before that Zhao Dan and the others had obtained a sea beast nightin of the mystical ascending stage here. Maybe what he smelled was the smell of another sea beast nightin. After all, Languza was the royal family of sea beasts, so he must be very familiar with the smell of sea beast nightin. Languza, can you determine where the smell is coming from? Although Linny did not find anything, he would not easily doubt Languza's words. So he patted Languza's body and asked him to try to find the source of the smell. Languza nodded and said, Boss, let me try. This smell is a bit scattered. I may not be able to find it. After speaking, Languza sniffed hard and swayed around. After a while, he seemed to have found the right direction and began to move along a straight line. Linny was secretly surprised. He had never heard of a sea serpent having a dog-like nose, but this was not important. What was important was what Languza could find. Another mystical ascending stage sea beast nightin? After a while, Languza stopped in front of a huge rock, walked around the rock, and then said to Linny with certainty, Boss, it's inside this rock. The feeling is stronger now, it's definitely right. Linny suspiciously scanned the huge rock in front of him with divine sense, but he did not find anything. The inside of this rock was extremely normal, and divine sense could completely penetrate it. Boss, step aside, let me break this rock. Languza's own divine sense couldn't find any traces of what might be inside the rock, but his strange sense of smell made him unwilling to give up. In fact, Languza had never felt that his sense of smell was sensitive before, but today, he didn't know what was going on. The faint smell lingered in his nose all the time, and he couldn't get rid of it at all. Linny obviously didn't notice it at all. Only he could smell it. Linny also felt that this matter was a bit strange. But the jade pendant didn't give any warning. There shouldn't be any danger. So he took 2 steps back and let Languza deal with this huge rock. Languza didn't use any complex and advanced martial arts. He directly used his tyrannical body to deal with the rock. With a swing of his thick tail, a large piece of rock was smashed. After a few consecutive lashes, this huge rock suddenly fell apart. Languza used his divine sense as an eye and stretched out his 2 claws to dig a few times. He found a piece of gravel the size of a millstone. "Boss, it's here. The smell is getting stronger and stronger." Languza turned his head and pointed to the stone and said to Lin Yi. Although it was dark, Lin Yi could still clearly see his every move. The problem was that Lin Yi still couldn't smell anything. And he couldn't tell what was different about the rock that Languza was holding with his 2 claws. "Languza, you open this stone carefully and see what is inside." Lin Yi stepped forward and touched the stone. Languza agreed. He held the stone with 1 claw and slid his other claw on the stone. The sharp claws easily left a clear mark on the stone, and then slowly fell off. As the small stones fell, a small black jade box slowly appeared. Lin Yi was also a little stunned. There was really something in this stone. If Languza didn't follow him, Lin Yi would never notice the existence of this black jade box, because he couldn't find it at all. Languza held the black jade box and came to Lin Yi's side. He laughed and said, "Boss, look, I told you there was something in it. My nose is really too amazing." Lin Yi smiled slightly. He thought in his heart that you and General Weiwu would have a lot in common in the future. Languza handed the black jade box to Lin Yi, and then looked at it eagerly. He had tried to open this jade box just now, but he couldn't find the opening mechanism, no matter how hard he tried. He wanted to use brute force to open it, but he was afraid of hurting the thing in the jade box. After all, he could smell it. Languza didn't dare to simply touch it, so he could only pin his hope on Lin Yi. Lin Yi looked at the black jade box in his hand with a strange expression. When he scanned it with his divine sense, he could see the size and shape of the jade box clearly. However, when he wanted to go deeper into it, his divine sense passed through it directly, as if he was holding a ball of air in his hand. This situation made Lin Yi very suspicious. Was everything he saw in this dark space real? Could it be that everything in the darkness, in Lin Yi's consciousness, was actually missing a large part of it? Thinking of this, Lin Yi simply lit up an alchemy fire to illuminate the surroundings. The surrounding environment was immediately reflected in his eyes and overlapped with what he saw with his divine sense. Originally, because it was the same with divine sense, Lin Yi was too lazy to think of a way to light up the place. Now in this situation, he had to use his naked eyes to observe. Fortunately, after seeing it clearly, there didn't seem to be anything different, which made Lin Yi feel more at ease. Looking at the smooth body of the jade box, there was no lock or anything like that. He raised his hand and shook it a few times. There was a slight sound inside. Obviously, there was something inside the jade box. He touched it inch by inch with his hand, and there wasn't even a small crack. It was as if it was a piece of natural black jade. This jade box is really strange. I don't know what is inside. Just the jade box itself can be considered as a good treasure. Lin Yi tried to open it but couldn't, so he could only pass it back to Languza. After all, this was something he found, so it wasn't good for Lin Yi to take it for himself. Chapter 5660. Lin Yi looked at Languza in astonishment. He just said that this jade box was a good treasure, and this guy immediately destroyed it? But Lin Yi was relieved in the blink of an eye. There was no point in holding on to this jade box anyway. He might as well just open it and see what was inside. Languza's decisiveness was really like a ruthless man, a ruthless dragon. Boss, I didn't mean it. I didn't expect this thing to be so hard to hold." Languza looked at Lin Yi awkwardly, with a look of bewilderment. Lin Yi was speechless. "You didn't mean it? I was just about to praise you for being a decisive, ruthless dragon. Forget it, if it's broken, then it's broken." Lenny waved his hand carelessly and focused his attention on what Languza was holding in his claws. In addition to the fragments of the black jade box, there was a thin book in the middle of Languza's claws. The paper was made of an unknown material, but it was extraordinarily tough. Languza's claws did not cause any damage to it, and what emitted pure spiritual power was a fist-sized blue-gold sea beast's Niden. Judging from the strength of the spiritual power, Lenny speculated that it was at least at the peak of the mysterious ascension middle stage. However, Lenny was not too interested in this Niden. Although the Niden of the mysterious ascension middle stage was rare, Lenny did not need it at the moment. On the contrary, Lenny felt that the book would be a good gain. This is the Niden of our sea serpent clan. Languza suddenly showed a sad expression, looked at the blue-gold sea beast Niden and murmured. Only then did Lenny understand. So it was the inner core of the sea serpent clan. No wonder Languza could sense it. He probably didn't smell anything. It was just that the inner core of the same clan had formed some sort of mysterious connection with him, causing him to feel that he smelled a faint scent. Languza, are you alright? It was also the first time that Lenny saw Languza with such an expression. He had always been carefree, so Lenny didn't know what to say for a while. Languza was stunned. I'm fine. Boss, what's wrong? Lenny almost suspected that he had seen wrongly just now. This guy didn't show any sadness at all, did he? Lenny couldn't be bothered to say anything more. He pointed at the book in Languza's hand and said, It's fine. Let me have a look at the book in your hand. You can deal with the inner core of your ancestors yourself. Languza replied with an O, using his other claw to pick up the book and pass it to Lenny. Then, he slapped away the black jade shards at the side of the core, casually tossing the core of the middle stage mystic ascension dragon into his mouth and gulping it down. Lenny held the book and looked at Languza in a daze. What happened to the ancestor of the clan? He just swallowed it in one gulp. Languza grinned and said, Boss, what are you so surprised about? The Niden of our sea serpent clan is a kind of inheritance. The ancestor left the Niden to the younger generation, which is equivalent to his spirit not dying, so I swallowed this Niden as the greatest respect to the ancestor. The first law of sea beasts was that the strong preyed on the weak. The reason why the sea serpent dragons were able to become the royalty of the sea beasts was not only because of their powerful innate talent, but also because of this method of inheritance. Lenny smiled faintly and said, So that's how it is. Then you can digest it yourself. I'll study this book. Languza sat up and began to refine the Niden of the sea serpent clan. Originally, the sea beasts didn't like Nadens very much because the efficiency was too low. But the Niden of the sea serpent clan was different. Although the spiritual power contained in it couldn't improve Languza's strength too much, he could obtain some memory inheritance from this Niden. Maybe he could awaken some talent skills. Lenny didn't care about Languza and opened the cover of the book. There were 5 big words written on the cover. Essence of lightning gathering formation. Formation? Lenny didn't know whether he should be happy or sigh. He really didn't know much about formations. This essence of lightning gathering formation sounded very powerful, but it wasn't very useful to him because he couldn't understand it at all. Although that was the case, seeing that Languza was still digesting the Niden, Lenny thought that since he had nothing to do, he might as well continue to read it. What he didn't expect was that the opening chapter of the essence of lightning gathering formation didn't directly talk about lightning gathering formation. Instead, it talked about the most basic formation summary and explained it clearly. Even a beginner formation like Lin Yi could easily understand it. Lin Yi's interest was immediately piqued. After all, formations were extremely rare on Sky-class Island, and almost no one knew about them. If it wasn't for the ghost's memory, Lin Yi wouldn't have been able to break through Tion's one-step sky ascension. So this made Lin Yi sink his whole mind into the essence of lightning gathering formation. After all, if he encountered a formation again in the future, he wouldn't panic. After a long time, Lin Yi finished reading this thin book inside. So lightning gathering formation is an artificial thunder retribution point. Its power is not inferior to the natural thunder retribution point on the Thunderous Plain Island. If it's properly controlled, It can also be used as an offensive killing formation. It's really an eye-opener. At the end of the book, it was also mentioned that there was a lightning gathering formation here. The Supreme Elder of the Enlightenment faction probably entered the lightning gathering formation by mistake and was killed. If he had a Thunder Xian core, he might be able to directly advance to the Profound Ascension stage. Boss, what's the use of a lightning gathering formation Thunder Retribution point? Languza had already digested the Niden. His aura was also a lot stronger. He had already entered the peak of the early Profound Ascension stage. Linny smiled slightly and said, "That's what we humans use to advance to the Profound Ascension stage. You sea dragons have a chance to directly advance to the Profound Ascension stage after reaching adulthood. But we humans have to go through Thunder Retribution. So lightning gathering formation is indispensable." Speaking of which, the sea serpents were indeed blessed by the heavens. Evolving from a sea serpent to a sea serpent was a transformation, and evolving from a sea serpent to a sea dragon was another transformation. Each transformation allowed them to break through the limits of a big level. Lainey wondered if they'd become stronger after going through the lightning calamity. Chapter 56-61. As for the possible danger, Lainey didn't think that there would be any. First of all, Languza was already at the peak of the early stage of Mysterious Ascension Realm. As a member of the Sea Serpent clan, his body was much stronger than a human's. Even if he could withstand a few lightning tribulations, Lainey didn't have much else, but he had enough medicinal pills. One Thunder Profound pill was enough to make Languza completely safe. Although Lin Yi had read the essence of the lightning gathering array, it was obviously impossible for him to set up a lightning gathering array himself. The materials were a problem, and so was Lin Yi's formation skills. Fortunately, the lightning gathering array here had already been set up. Even if it had been in disrepair for a long time, Lin Yi could still repair it. Languza, let's continue. There's a lightning gathering array here. When we find it, I'll let you try it. Lin Yi didn't intend to hide it, and said directly to Languza. Languza asked doubtfully, "Boss, how do I try it? See if I'll be struck by lightning?" "If you put it like that, there's no problem." Lin Yi looked at Languza and smiled lightly. "Boss, can I choose not to try it?" Languza's mind was filled with the image of himself being struck black, like charcoal, with smoke coming out of his body. He immediately asked carefully with a bitter expression. Lin Yi nodded and said, "Of course you can. This is your right. But if you don't want to try it, you can go back to Serpent Island now. Otherwise you'll be struck by lightning." "Boss, where is the lightning gathering array? My body is a little itchy. I want to go and see what it feels like to bathe in lightning." Languza had an expression of duty. He looked left and right for the damn lightning gathering array. Compared to returning to Serpent Island, being struck by lightning a few times was completely acceptable. Lin Yi laughed and shook his head. Would this fellow refuse to leave the thunder gathering array after learning about the benefits of the thunder tribulation? While speaking, Lin Yi brought Languza to the front of another rock wall. He stretched out his finger and used his true chi to touch the rock wall a few times. The rock wall rippled, revealing a passage. The essence of the lightning gathering array mentioned the way to enter the lightning gathering array. Lin Yi followed the instructions in the book and found the node of the array easily. However, what Lin Yi couldn't understand was how Zhao Quan and Yin Chuncheng had managed to enter the lightning gathering array. If it was someone who didn't understand array formations, they wouldn't even be able to find the entrance to this passageway. Could it be that they had stumbled upon it by accident? However, it was also possible that the array had been in disrepair for a long time and had loosened a bit. Perhaps they didn't need to use any special methods to break in. Just as they entered the passageway, a lightning bolt suddenly descended, twisting and striking the top of Lin Yi's head. If it had struck, Lin Yi's primordial spirit would have suffered. It might even have directly collapsed. Fortunately, Lin Yi was already prepared. A similar lightning bolt appeared above his head, intercepting the previous lightning bolt. After a few crackling sounds, it dissipated. Languza shrunk his head. He could feel that this lightning bolt wasn't a fatal threat to him. But if it struck his body, it would definitely hurt. If Lenny hadn't insisted, then Lenguza definitely wouldn't have stepped into the lightning gathering array. It seems that the lightning gathering array has been damaged. The lightning has already escaped from the array. Lenny nodded, confirming his guess. He turned around and took out a Thunder Xian pill and handed it to Lenguza. Eat it. Lenguza didn't suspect anything and directly took it and threw it into his mouth. His trust in Lin Yi could be seen from this. Lenny nodded and continued to lead Lenguza forward. At the same time, he also increased his vigilance. This passageway wasn't long, only about 100 steps. However, lightning would appear at almost every step. It was simply an enhanced version of a frightening step. Even if Lin Yi was prepared, it was still a bit difficult to deal with. Under such circumstances, it was impossible to move quickly. If he couldn't accurately intercept the lightning, Lin Yi didn't know what would happen. If his body was here, of course, the lightning wouldn't be a threat. However, he didn't dare to take risks with his primordial spirit. After walking out of the passageway with great difficulty, Lin Yi's eyes suddenly opened up. When he looked up, he could see the cloudy sky. There were cliffs surrounding it, forming a valley that was neither too big nor too small. At the most central position, there was a clear array pattern emitting light, constantly circulating. Lightning gathering array. After so many years, it's still operating on its own. It's really amazing. Lin Yi exclaimed, and began to observe the damaged areas of the lightning gathering array. Normally, a complete array wouldn't let people see the array pattern, because it was easy to catch the nodes of the array and destroy it. Therefore, when he saw the array pattern, Lin Yi could confirm that the lightning gathering array was damaged. However, even a damaged lightning gathering array could attract quite a lot of lightning. With the lightning gathering array essence in hand, Lin Yi could easily observe the array. After all, finding the damaged areas was countless times easier than setting up a new one. Soon he found something. On one of the nodes of the lightning gathering array, the array pattern was broken. This caused the entire array to be unable to circulate at this point. It could only be diverted to another path. Because of this, the entire lightning gathering array was affected. Lin Yi focused on guarding against the lightning falling from the sky. At the edge of the array, the lightning was much denser than in the passageway. Only Lin Yi could use lightning to restrain it. If it was someone else, they might not be able to get close to this damaged node of the array. The foundation of the array uses spiritual jades as its power source? So that's how it is. The spiritual jades are only the initial power source. After the array is activated, the excess lightning energy will be channeled into the ground to replenish the spiritual jades. Therefore, the spiritual jades will never run out. It's almost a perpetual array. Lin Yi studied the damaged array foundation and suddenly let out a low sigh. In the lightning gathering array essence, only the arrangement of the array foundation wasn't mentioned in detail. Perhaps it was because the array foundation couldn't be set up artificially and had to be found in a naturally formed location? Or was the author of the array essence hiding something? However, it didn't matter much because the array foundation wasn't damaged. Lin Yi glanced at the broken array pattern. He didn't know if this node was damaged first, causing the array pattern to break, or if the array pattern broke first, causing the spiritual jades to be unable to replenish their energy. In any case, if he wanted to repair it, he had to first repair the array foundation. Chapter 56-62. The dark clouds in the sky churned, and the scattered thunder and lightning gathered again, concentrating in the transparent cover of the thunder-gathering array. Lin Yi heaved a sigh of relief. The thunder-gathering array was finally repaired. When the lines were completely hidden, the operation of the thunder-gathering array was also on the right track. Lin Yi, who had retreated, turned to Lenguza and said, "You can go in now. Don't worry, nothing will happen." Lenguza looked at the thunder and lightning falling from the thunder-gathering array. He did not believe that nothing would happen to him after going in. But since it was Lin Yi who said it, Lenguza did not continue to hesitate. He gritted his teeth and rushed into the thunder-gathering array. The moment he entered the lightning-gathering matrix, a bolt of lightning accurately struck Languza. His entire slender body was covered in tiny leaping lightning arcs. However, the destructive damage that he expected did not appear. On the contrary, Languza felt a numbing sensation all over his body. It was so comfortable that he could not describe it in words. Ha 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 ha, boss, did you see that? I'm really bathing in thunder and lightning. It's so comfortable. Languza burst into laughter as the continuous thunder and lightning fell. He even had the leisure to wave his hands and shout at Lin Yi outside the array. Lin Yi smiled faintly. This was all within his calculations. Languza's body was incomparably strong, and with the help of the Thunder Xian pill, the thunder and lightning in the thunder-gathering array could cleanse his body. Although Languza's body had been modified by Lin Yi's vital qi, the potential contained in it was not something that Lin Yi could stimulate. This time, the thunder and lightning baptism could complete this crucial step, allowing Languza to undergo a fundamental transformation. It's really effective. Languza has already begun to evolve. I wonder how much stronger this guy will become after he transforms into a sea dragon. Lin Yi looked at Languza, who was tossing and turning in the lightning within the lightning-gathering matrix, his eyes filled with gratification. Languza was also very excited. With every lightning bolt that fell on his body, he could clearly feel that he had become a lot stronger. This kind of improvement speed was simply unheard of. Languza also finally understood why Lin Yi insisted that he enter the lightning-gathering array to try. When the third claw grew out of Languza's lower abdomen, Languza finally couldn't contain his excitement. He couldn't help but roar towards the sky, and the faint sound of a dragon's roar shook the valley. Lin Yi could not help being visibly moved too as he said, "This guy really has limitless potential." Just by going through the baptism of the lightning tribulation and completing the evolution, his strength directly jumped from the peak of the early mysterious ascension stage to the late mysterious ascension stage in one fell swoop. In the entire Sea Dragon clan, probably only the Sea Dragon King can be stronger than him, right? Originally, when Languza transformed into a sea dragon, he would not have risen by 3 levels in one go. Even counting the 1 level that he had just risen by because of the Niden, he had risen by 4 levels in a row. There were still many factors that combined together to form this. For example, after the potion in the center forcibly increased Languza's strength level, it began to cause Languza's body to begin to collapse at the genetic level. In fact, the root cause was that Languza's physical body was not strong enough to withstand the power of the potion. In other words, before the power of the potion could be fully exerted, it was unreasonably suppressed by Lin Yi's universal true qi. Then, while the universal true qi was repairing Languza's genes, it was also the most direct cause of Languza's mutation. Even Lin Yi was not clear about the changes, let alone the ignorant Languza. If this continued, the residual power of the potion in the center would slowly be released, but it was difficult to tell whether it would become beneficial or harmful. Because of this, there were 2 extreme evaluations of Languza's potential. This time, following Lin Yi to find the thunder-gathering formation could be said to be Languza's greatest opportunity, because Lin Yi would not attract the thunder retribution for no reason. It was also because of this that he suddenly had the idea to let Languza, who had already reached the profound ascension stage, try the effect of the thunder-gathering formation. The final result was that the power of the thunder and lightning forced all the residual potion hidden in Languza's cells out, turning it into one of the power of transformation and evolution. Coupled with the powerful improvement brought by the evolution itself, and the sea dragon Niden that had not been completely digested, it caused him to rise by 3 levels in one go. However, this was not the end. In the thunder and lightning, the huge body of Languza, who had completed the evolution, shrank rapidly. In a blink of an eye, he was only about 2 meters tall, and the 3 claws also transformed into 4 strong and powerful limbs. Transforming into a human form, Lin Yi did not expect Languza to give him such a surprise at the end. Previously, he heard from Languza that the Sea Dragon clan could only completely transform into a human form after evolving into a sea dragon. If it was a sea dragon, it would be impossible for them to do this. However, the current Languza was obviously just a sea dragon that had just evolved. There was still a long way to go before he could evolve into a sea dragon, but he could already successfully transform into a human. It could only be said that this guy's mutation was quite powerful. In terms of talent, there was probably no one in the Sea Dragon clan that could be compared to Languza. Ha 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 ha, boss, I've also become a human. Boss, do you think I'm handsome? After Languza's transformation was completed, the thunder and lightning in the lightning gathering array also temporarily calmed down. Without the dazzling lightning, Languza's new appearance was completely revealed. His shoulder-length blue-gold hair exuded a luxurious radiance, looking wild and unruly in the midst of his messy hair. His angular face, sword-like eyebrows and starry eyes, was filled with masculinity and domineeringness. The corners of his mouth curled up subconsciously, revealing a hint of a devilish smile. His golden ratio body was strong and slender, and his well-proportioned muscles contained explosive power. How could this be described with just the word handsome? This was simply a rhythm that could charm thousands of young girls. However, Lenny only curled his lips and said indifferently, "Don't you know how to change clothes?" That one sentence changed the scene. From a Prince Charming, he immediately turned into a gangster running around naked. Languza had just opened his legs and was already unsteady because he was not used to it. When he heard that, he directly fell to the ground. He stood up and scratched his head with a dry smile. "I don't think so. Boss, can you lend me your clothes?" Lenny was speechless. He could transform into a human form, but he couldn't transform his clothes together. He was really just a dabbler. Chapter 56-63. Wahahaha, boss. Even though your clothes are a little tight, it can't be helped that you're handsome. You look handsome no matter what you wear. Don't you think so, boss? Languza rubbed his sleeves and rolled up his trousers as he laughed proudly. Lenny couldn't be bothered with him. He walked to the side of the lightning circle and studied it for a while. This formation had a cool-down period, and the lightning from before had pretty much used up all the lightning in the sky. It needed some time to recharge. Taking this opportunity, Lenny found the key to close the array according to the description of the lightning gathering array and stopped it. With this discovery, Lenny had to make a trip back to the Green Cloud sect. As long as he could guard this lightning gathering formation, there would be more Mystic Ascension stage cultivators appearing in the small Jianghu. In the future, if he could really connect to the Sky-class island, the gap between them and the Sky-class island wouldn't be too huge. Languza, wait here first. I'll go back to the Blue Cloud sect and bring a few people here. After Lenny stopped the lightning gathering array, he got up and said to Languza. Languza nodded and said, "Okay, boss, do you need me to send you there? With my speed, I can get there faster." Lenny thought for a moment and shook his head. "Forget it, my flying spirit beast is still outside. You stay here and stabilize your cultivation. It's not good if you don't familiarize yourself with the continuous leveling up." Languza heard this and did not insist. He had just transformed into a human form. He did not want to immediately change back to his original form, especially the clothes that he had just put on. He had to change back to his original form, and then put it back on again. It was really troublesome. He had to cultivate the ability to transform clothes as soon as possible. Then go back quickly, boss. I'll practice walking here first. I've never tried to walk with my legs before. I'm really not used to it. Languza chuckled as he took 2 steps forward. Then he fell head first onto the ground again. Luckily, he was prepared this time. In order not to dirty his clothes, he extended his hand and propped himself up. It was just that he did not grasp his center of gravity well, and his entire body fell backward again. A dignified mysterious ascension late-stage super expert, of course, would not fall so easily. He used his hands to support himself, and his body stood up again, and then fell to the side again. Lenny didn't know what to say. He looked at Languza playing with the roly-poly toy, and didn't say anything more. He left the place directly and returned to the mouth of the volcano outside. He summoned a flying spirit beast and flew back to the green cloud sect. When he returned to the blue cloud sect this time, Linny did not alert anyone. He directly found Exanigia and asked Exanigia to inform Primordial Invincible and the other two masters of the mysterious ascending stage to leave the blue cloud sect quietly and flew to the nameless island. Along the way, Linny had already told Exanigia the method of activating the Thunder Gathering formation. This formation must be controlled by the blue cloud sect. The current situation of the small Jianghu in the ancient times was already dominated by the blue cloud sect. There was no need to create another sect that could compete with the blue cloud sect. When he brought the four into the cave and arrived at the valley where the Thunder Gathering formation was located, Lenguza could already walk and jump normally. He looked no different from an ordinary person. After all, he was a master. He did not lack balance. It was easy to find the trick with a little practice. On the way, Linny had already told them about Lenguza's transformation. However, after seeing it with his own eyes, he still felt a little strange. After all, when they parted yesterday, he was still a sea serpent. Today he had turned into a fierce man. This transformation was too huge. Lenguza did not treat them as outsiders. He laughed and patted on one of their shoulders. "How is it? Are you all stunned? Are you shocked by this young master's dazzling and handsome appearance? It's okay. After a few more looks, you will become accustomed to feeling inferior. By then, there won't be any problems." Ha 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 ha. The others were fine with it, but Yui could not help but say, "Lenguza, you were quite good at talking yesterday. Why have you regressed so much today? When it comes to handsome, how can you be better than me?" Suddenly, he remembered that Linny was standing beside him. Yui quickly added, "Not to mention, there's also our boss Lin." After that, Yui turned his head and smiled at Linny. What he meant was, "Master, you will always be the most handsome man in the world. I, Yui, will always be the second most handsome man in the world." Of course, in his heart, Yui would never admit it. In this world, except for Master Yui, who dared to say the word handsome? Linny directly ignored this pair of treasures. He signaled Exanigia and the other two to follow him. The matter of the Thunder Gathering formation must be explained clearly. Who would have the time to care about these two? Lenguza saw Linny walking towards the Thunder Gathering formation. He thought to himself, "Boss is strong, but in terms of handsome, he is only a little better than me. But who is Yui? He looks like a zombie." Thinking of this, Lenguza suddenly squinted at Yui and said with a face full of disdain, "I admit that boss is more handsome than me. But how are you handsome, you old fart? You look like dirt." "Oh no, I just patted your shoulder. It's so dirty. I need to wash my hands." Yui was furious. He rolled up his sleeves and said, "What did you say, you damn sea snake?" "Do you believe that I won't kill you?" In Yuyi's impression, Lenguza was a weak sea snake who was caught by the center to use potions to enhance his strength. Originally, sea dragons and sea snakes looked quite similar. Lenguza also had the blood of sea snakes, so it was not nonsense. Lenguza sneered and said, "You old fart, you're quite bold. Come on, try to kill me." After that, Lenguza did not do anything. He directly released his aura. The powerful aura of the mysterious Ascension late stage was immediately revealed. Yui was dumbfounded. How did this damn sea snake suddenly become mysterious Ascension late stage? Damn, it must be Lin Yi's doing. I only left him for a few days. All the benefits were given to this damn sea snake. He didn't even think about who he was working so hard for. After glancing at Lin Yi's back with hidden bitterness, Yui immediately said to Lenguza with a smile on his face, "I mean, Brother Lan, you're so handsome. You're going to kill me. You're so handsome that you're not giving others a way out. Ha 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 ha. Other than Boss Lin Yi, you're definitely the most handsome. Yui can barely be considered third." The situation was stronger than the person. Yui immediately changed his words without saying a word. It was just that the change was a little stiff. He could only laugh a few times to cover it up. Lenguza expressed his satisfaction. He snorted twice and crossed his arms in front of his chest. He looked at the sky at a 45-degree angle. Chapter 56-64. Yui gritted his teeth and laughed dryly a couple more times before running over to Lin Yi's side. There was no helping it. If he wanted to get stronger, he had to grab onto Lin Yi's little bastard. He thought that he would be the number one of the pugilistic world after reaching Xiansheng. But he didn't expect that there would be an undefeatable immemorial, and then Shengguan Feixing who was stronger than him. And now even that dead sea snake was about to break through the sky. Yui felt that his life was too tragic, and suddenly he felt that Lin Yi's departure wasn't a good thing for him. Primordial Invincible, Shengguan Feixing, and Exanijia all looked back in surprise when they felt Ling Guz's powerful aura. But they did not stop. To them, Lin Yi's words were more important than anything else, so they continued to follow behind Lin Yi. Lin Yi continued to ignore their behavior. As long as they did not fight, he would let them do whatever they wanted. Lan Guzhou tried to make a pose for a long time, but in the end, no one was appreciating it. He immediately felt bored and decided to stroll over to Lin Yi's side to listen to Lin Yi talk about the lightning convergence matrix. This thunder-gathering formation is one of the keys for a peak nascent soul realm cultivator to advance to the mysterious ascension stage. Only after going through the thunder tribulation can you integrate your own spiritual roots and become a mysterious ascension stage cultivator. However, a normal peak nascent soul realm cultivator cannot withstand the attack of the thunder tribulation. Lin Yi said as he activated the thunder-gathering formation. Primordial Invincible, Shengguan Feixing, and Exanijia had all gone through the thunder tribulation created by Lin Yi. When they felt the lightning in the thunder-gathering formation, they became serious. The power of the lightning in the thunder-gathering formation should be stronger than the thunder tribulation created by Lin Yi. Of course, they had never experienced Lin Yi's lightning burial before, which was why they thought that way. Compared to Lin Yi's lightning burial, this spot was much weaker. Without the Thunder Xian pill, a perfected nascent soul cultivator of the human race would not be able to withstand it. Even the most talented sea beasts might not be able to withstand the thunder tribulation. Lin Yi could refine the Thunder Xian pill, and he also had the Thunder Xian rattan in his hands. However, the development of the primordial underworld couldn't be undertaken by Lin Yi alone. He had to let the primordial underworld operate well. Here are 2 Thunder Xian pills as backups, and a formula of the Thunder Xian pill. Exanijia, keep it well and give it to Ma Zayden to study on the formula later. Let's see if we can make any changes. Lin Yi could not improve the formula by himself, so he could only pin his hope on Ma Zayden. The alchemy recipes of the primordial underworld had its own system. Even the Thunder Xian pill recipe of the Heaven Rank Island was not suitable here, because there was no Thunder Xian Ting here. He could only find other ways to replace the ingredients in the pill formula. For example, the precious Thunder Xian rattan could be replaced by the inner core of a sea beast of the thunder attribute, or the inner core of a sea beast of the ethereal ascension stage. It all depended on Ma Zayden and the others to study it. Exanijia agreed and solemnly took the 2 Thunder Xian pills and the formula from Lin Yi. Lin Yi did not say who to give these 2 pills to. Exanijia guessed that he wanted him to do as he saw fit. Currently, he was already at the perfected nascent soul realm, but he did not have enough experience. Even if he had the Thunder Xian pill, he would not dare to try to advance. Bing Wuqing was in the same situation. In terms of her relationship with Lin Yi, Bing Wuqing was not inferior to Exanijia at all. However, he also did not have enough experience, so he might not succeed in breaking through to the ethereal ascension stage now. The only thing was that Bing Wuqing's talent was top-notch in the primordial underworld. Therefore, Exanijia had decided that one of the 2 Thunder Xian pills must be reserved for Bing Wuqing. Ijia, I'll leave this thunder-gathering matrix to you. Only you can master the trick of opening the matrix. Then, you and the rest of you can discuss and choose suitable nascent soul realm cultivators to accept the thunder tribulation every year. Even without the Thunder Xian pill, they still have a chance to advance. It all depends on their choice. Lin Yi told Xanijia the trick of opening the matrix using vital chi telepathy and reminded him. Yes, granduncle, I'll remember. Xanijia bowed respectfully and said, the primordial underworld will be grateful for granduncle's great kindness. Not to mention that Lin Yi had left behind the recipe of the Thunder Xian pill. Even without the Thunder Xian pill, the Thunder Gathering Matrix alone had already provided the cultivators in the primordial underworld with hope of advancing to the ethereal ascension stage for thousands of years. Xanijia was right. This was a great kindness that all the cultivators in the primordial underworld would remember. Lin Yi, on the other hand, didn't really care about these things. After giving a few more instructions, he left with Languza. The matters of the immemorial underworld had finally come to an end. Lin Yi was eager to return home, and only wanted to get back to Heaven Tier Island as soon as possible. The time taken for the Yuanshan projection had greatly exceeded the original estimation. He did not know if there were any changes on the Heaven Stage Island. After all, the Heaven Stage Island was where Lin Yi was now. Therefore, he did not want to waste even a second. He brought Languza back to the teleportation point at full speed and teleported to the transit station. As soon as he arrived at the transit station, Lin Yi immediately rushed to the newly built residence. He wanted to see Meng Yao and the others who were in a coma. With old Lin and the others around, Lin Yi had never worried about any problems. However, what surprised Lin Yi was that there was no one on the island. Not only old Lin and Aunt Qing, but all the people who were in a coma were also missing. What happened? Where did everyone go? Lin Yi was really shocked. Those who were left here were the most important people to him. If something happened to them, it would be a pain that Lin Yi could not bear. His divine sense spread out instantly, covering the entire island. However, he still could not find any trace of anyone. Lin Yi, who was always calm, couldn't help but feel a little nervous. Boss, there seems to be someone in the sea. Seeing that Lin Yi was running around looking, Languza did not dare to stay idle. However, as a member of the Endless Sea Beast King clan, his attention would naturally be focused on the sea. Therefore, he found the figure in the sea earlier than Lin Yi. Lin Yi was startled. He immediately swept his divine sense over. He had never thought of going into the sea before. After all, Meng Yao and the others were in a coma. It was impossible for them to play in the sea. In addition, the figure had just emerged from the sea, so it was discovered by Languza first. It's Chen Yutian. Lin Yi heaved a sigh of relief. Finally, he saw someone close to him. Since Chen Yutian was fine, the others shouldn't be in danger either. He was too worried, but the moment he saw Chen Yutian, he regained his composure. Chapter 56-65. Boss Lin Yi, you're back. I caught a lot of seafood. Let's barbecue together. Chen Yutian laughed as he ran to the beach. Seeing his expression, Lin Yi was even more certain that the others were safe. After greeting Chen Yutian with a smile, Lin Yi asked, why are you here alone? Where did the others go? Oh, it's Senior Lin who had something to do, and he brought Aunt Qing back to the common world. Chen Yutian threw down 2 net bags and stood up straight. Lin Yi used to be his instructor, so every time he saw Lin Yi, Chen Yutian would naturally want to stand up straight and talk. This habit couldn't be changed no matter what. Without Senior Lin here, we felt that we couldn't guarantee our safety here, so we might as well go back to the common world. It'll be easier to control the situation there, so they brought Yao Yao and my sister back. I stayed behind to wait for you, boss. I was afraid that you'd be worried if you didn't see them when you came back. Chen Yutian explained briefly, and Lin Yi got the general idea. Old Lin was probably going back to the West Star Village to drink the spring water. He left for a long time this time, and the others were afraid that the people from the ancient small Jianghu would come to the transfer station. Without old Lin, the rest of them weren't a match for the practitioners from the ancient small Jianghu, so they went back to the common world. Now in the common world, they were the top existences, and no one in the world was a match for them. Unless they used weapons of mass destruction, Everything was under control. It was indeed more convenient for them to go back to the common world. It's good that they went back. Let's go back together. After visiting them, I'll go back to Sky Tier Island. Lin Yi signaled Chen Yutian to go to the transfer point with him. Chen Yutian froze and pointed at the 2 bags of seafood on the ground. Don't you want to eat some seafood first? I'm about to throw up from eating this stuff. What's so special about it? Languza glanced at the 2 nets on the ground in disgust and shook his head, following Lin Yi. I forgot to ask, who are you? Chen Yutian saw that Lin Yi wasn't interested, so he opened the 2 nets and threw them back into the sea. He chased after Languza and asked. Just when Languza was about to strike the most handsome pose to answer this question, Lin Yi said without turning his head. His name is Languza. He's a little brother that I took in the immemorial martial world. Languza, Chen Yutian is also my follower. He's one of my earliest followers, so you have to respect him. If Lin Yi didn't say this, with Languza's strength, he wouldn't put Chen Yutian, who was only at the foundation establishment stage, in his eyes. As for now, he didn't seem to put Chen Yutian in his eyes. Boss, don't worry. I will respect him. But I don't think there's any need to respect people who aren't as handsome as me. Of course, in this world, I don't think there's anyone more handsome than me, haha. Boss, you might be the only exception. Lin Yi was speechless. Did Languza go crazy when he transformed into a human? Or was it because there were too many lightning bolts in the lightning gathering formation, and he became stupid? How could he be so narcissistic to this extent? You're a flood dragon. Can't you show some dominance of a flood dragon? Lin Yi didn't turn around, but his divine sense could clearly see that Languza struck a pose after speaking. Lin Yi's mouth twitched. Forget it, this guy should just give up on treatment. Chen Yutian, on the other hand, looked at Languza curiously. He didn't know where Lin Yi found this guy. To be honest, Lin Yi was more handsome than him, and he couldn't see through Lin Yi's strength at all. It was just that the pose was really ugly. Languza didn't know what Chen Yutian was thinking, or else he would have turned back to his original form and spit on Chen Yutian's face. After striking the pose that he thought was perfect, Languza put his arm around Chen Yutian's shoulder and said, Since boss said that you followed boss first, then I'll call you Yutian bro. To be honest, although you're not as handsome as me, you're still much better than that old bastard Yui. It seems like the 3rd seat is for you, and that old bastard has to move back again. I'm sure he'll be pissed to death later, haha. Chen Yutian laughed dryly. Thanks for the compliment. Actually, you can just call me by my name. No need to be so polite. Yutian bro sounded like someone who would only appear on rainy days. He was such a sunny person. How was he related to rainy days? No need to be so polite, it's what I should do. This time we're going to your territory. I still need you to show me around. Yutian bro, otherwise, a handsome man like me will attract a lot of attention when I go out, and I won't know where to go. Languza had a matter-of-fact expression on his face, and Chen Yutian felt that he couldn't keep up with Languza's train of thought. He couldn't continue the conversation. Luckily, they arrived at the teleportation point, and Chen Yutian quickly shook off Languza's arm and walked into the teleportation point first. Lin Yi activated the teleportation point after placing the spiritual jade in place. After a flash of light, the 3 of them successfully left the station and returned to the mortal world's teleportation point. Originally, Lin Yi wanted to look for the Blue Sky Valley near the River of Consciousness, but he couldn't find the exact location after asking around for a long time. In order to not waste time, he decided to wait until next time. Near the teleportation point, Yubing had people set up an Ice Palace branch, and there were many mortal world masters stationed there. One reason was to protect the teleportation point from being destroyed, and the other was to wait for Lin Yi's return. So as soon as Lin Yi and the other 2 appeared on the teleportation point, a helicopter flew over and brought them to the nearest airport, where they transferred to a private plane that was already prepared. Languza said excitedly, Boss, your place is really interesting. The flying equipment is really good, it's fast and stable, and it doesn't need spiritual jade to fly. It's the best. It's almost the same as the AI Fuo in the center. Lenny smiled faintly and didn't explain further. The technological power of the common world, when placed in the world of practitioners, was also a rather magical thing. It was just like the technological boom on Sky-class Island and Kong Xiaoming's armor and laser cannons. It was normal for Languza to be surprised. Chapter 56-66. Lenny chatted with the girls for a long time, and a few hours passed. Chen Yutian knocked on the door. "Boss, I received a mission from the Supernatural Investigation Bureau, and I need to leave for a while, so I came to inform you. Go, but be careful. Although you should have no opponents in the common world, the center seems to be stirring up trouble again. Their strength is not to be underestimated." Lenny stood up and patted Chen Yutian's shoulder, reminding him. Lenny wasn't sure whether the center would come back to cause trouble or not, so he didn't say much. Chen Yutian nodded and left. Lenny looked back at the girls and followed him out. It was rare for him to come back, so Lenny planned to meet his two followers, Kong Xiaobo and Fatty Lai. They didn't have much interest in training, but the common world's business was the best stage for them to show off their skills. As for these two followers who followed Lin Yi since the beginning, he still had to meet them before he went back. After Languza had seen his sisters-in-law who had fainted, he had been eating and drinking in the living room while watching TV. Whether it was the wonderful programs or the delicious food, it made Languza very happy. He felt that this place was like heaven. What kind of life did he have in the endless sea before? Seeing Lin Yi coming downstairs, Languza quickly stretched his neck and swallowed the food in his mouth. He said excitedly, "Boss, do you want to take me out for a walk? I can go anytime." Chen Yutian was supposed to bring Languza out to play, but Chen Yutian went out on a mission, so he could only rely on Lin Yi. As for Yu Bing and Yu Dake, Languza didn't think that Chen Yutian could get along with them. Besides, they were in charge of guarding this place, so it wouldn't be easy for them to leave. Lin Yi smiled faintly. This was the first time Languza came to the common world, and he was full of curiosity. He didn't plan to bring Languza to meet Kong Xiaobo and Lai Changyi, but since Languza wanted to go out, Lin Yi didn't mind bringing him around. "Let's go, I'll bring you around." After saying that, Lin Yi said goodbye to Yu Bing and the others, and brought the excited Languza out. Walking on the main street, Languza felt that there were new and interesting things everywhere. He had never even been to a human town in the ancient era's Little Jianghu. Coming to the mortal world at once, of course he had a feeling that there was too much to take in. Languza's handsome face also brought him a lot of attention, especially his luxurious blue golden hair, which was especially dazzling under the sun. Luckily, the people in the common world were used to seeing the world, so they thought that this kid dyed his hair. There wasn't a scene like what Languza expected. "Boss, this place is so fun. How long are you planning to stay here? Why don't we just stay here forever?" Languza liked this place more and more, so he started to encourage Lin Yi to stay here. As for the sparse spiritual qi in the common world, it was completely ignored by Languza. After all, at his level, it was basically impossible to rely on natural spiritual qi to level up. As long as he didn't overuse his spiritual qi, it didn't matter if there was spiritual qi or not. At most, he could use spiritual jades to replenish his daily consumption. Lin Yi's heart moved. If Languza liked to stay in the common world, then it was not a bad choice. After all, the people from the center had already returned to the common world. He didn't know if they could create a profound ascending stage master here. With Languza's strength, the human practitioners in the profound ascending stage were basically no match for him. With him here, safety would be more guaranteed. "Languza, I can't stay here for too long, but if you like it here you can stay," Lin Yi said directly to Languza. Languza hesitated for a moment and said, "I want to follow boss, I'll go wherever boss goes." Although the common world was very attractive to him, Languza still knew how he should choose. Lin Yi smiled and said, "Didn't I say that you can't go where I want to go? So if you don't stay here, you have to go back to the endless sea." Then I'll stay here. Languza didn't hesitate and immediately made a choice. After seeing the prosperity of the common world, he didn't want to go back to the damn endless sea. If you choose to stay here, then I have to ask you to help me protect the people in the villa, okay? Linny solemnly said to Languza. This was related to the safety of Chu Mingyao and others. He would not take it lightly. Boss, rest assured, the safety of the sisters-in-law will be handed over to me, Languza. If there's any problem with the sisters-in-law, just look for me, boss. Languza immediately patted his chest and took care of everything. This was a good reason to stay. Moreover, Linny didn't use an order, but a negotiating tone. Even the simple-minded Languza could feel the respect that Linny had for him. With a boss like this, what else was there to say? Thank you. With you here, I feel much more assured. Linny smiled and nodded to Languza. Now, even if the center wanted to cause trouble, there wouldn't be anything to worry about. Unknowingly, the two walked to the entrance of Miracle Dr. Guan Medical Group. Linny raised his head and looked at the tall building. For a moment he was in a daze. The passers-by around him gave Lin Yi a strange feeling. It was familiar, yet strange. The past days felt like a lifetime ago. Languza stood beside Lin Yi, looking around without any impatience. When he saw a pretty girl sneaking glances at him, he purposely put on a bright smile. And when the girl blushed and turned to leave, he started laughing out loud, as if he was enjoying himself. Linny came back to his senses, shook his head slightly, and walked towards the entrance of the building. Languza looked back and saw that Linny wasn't beside him, so he quickly followed. After entering the building, Linny directly walked towards the elevator used by the higher-ups of the company. A beautiful girl at the front desk quickly stopped Linny. Before she said anything, she showed a sweet smile and said respectfully, "Hello, sir. How can I help you?" Linny was stunned. He just remembered that he hadn't appeared in Miracle Dr. Guan Medical Group for a long time. Most of the employees probably didn't know him. Actually, there weren't many old employees who knew Linny, so it was normal that he was stopped. Chapter 56-67. Genius 1 second. Remember, if you want to go? Talk.net, providing you with wonderful novels to read. The little beauty still maintained her sweet smile and nodded gently. Yes, but this elevator is for the senior management of our group. People without fingerprint identification can't use it. And if you want to see Chairman Kong, you need to make an appointment in advance. Can you please call him and say that Linny is looking for him? I think he will see me, Linny said calmly. If it was an old employee, hearing Lin Yi's name, even if he didn't know, he would know who was coming. After all, whether it was Kong Xiaobo or Lai Changyi, they all regarded themselves as Lin Yi's younger brother, and were quite proud of it. But although the little beauty in front of him felt that Lin Yi's name was familiar, she didn't remember that this was an important person specially ordered by the two chairmen. After all, Lin Yi had never appeared before. No one would always remember the name of a person who had never appeared before. I'm sorry, now Chairman Kong is receiving foreign guests. It's not convenient for me to call and disturb him. Can you please wait for a moment? The little beauty said apologetically, which made Lin Yi not dissatisfied at all. Since Kong Xiaobo is not free, is Lai Changyi here? It's the same for you to find him. Lin Yi turned to ask Lai Changyi. Anyway, they were the same. If he saw one, he would naturally see the other. The little beauty said awkwardly. I'm sorry, Chairman Lai is also receiving foreign guests, so I can't contact him. Lin Yi could directly call Kong Xiaobo and Lai Changyi by their names. Obviously, his identity was not simple. Looking at Lin Yi's temperament, the little beauty also felt that he was not an ordinary person. So he continuously refused Lin Yi's requests, which made the little beauty a little nervous. In fact, she thought too much. How could Lin Yi be angry with an ordinary person? What's more, this little beauty gave Lin Yi a very good feeling. Such a receptionist was very cultured. Now Lin Yi was wondering what kind of foreign guest had come to receive Kong Xiaobo and Lai Changyi together. After Lin Yi left, These two fellows became the co-chairmen of Miracle Dr. Guan's medical company. Under normal circumstances, sending one was already a grand treatment. Sending two at the same time, could it be that some foreign leader came? Then forget it. When they're done with their work, tell them that I've been here, and ask them to find me. Lenny waved his hand, thinking that since they were busy, he should just let them be. Anyway, these two guys had followed him to the transit station and said everything that needed to be said. They were more obsessed with business, so Lenny did not bother them with business matters. All right, Mr. Lin. I will definitely convey your message to the two chairmen. The little beauty smiled sweetly and bowed slightly. Her words and actions were impeccable. At this time, the elevator used by the group's executives opened, and a beautiful young woman came out. Hearing the little beauty's words, she asked, "Who are these two guests? Do they want to see the chairman?" The little beauty looked and quickly replied, "Yes, CEO Lon. They want to see the two chairmen." Love Go Blittled say Netquiv already told them that the chairmen are receiving foreign guests and can't see them for now. This beautiful young woman was Lan Fun. When she turned around and saw the smiling Lin Yi, she immediately called out in surprise, "Lin bro, you're back. Why didn't you tell us to pick you up?" "I'm here to tell you guys." Lin Yi saw his old friend and made a rare joke. However, when he saw Lan Fun, he thought of Tang Yin again, and his mood became a lot gloomier. "Lin bro, you're too much. You should have told Xiaobo to come down and pick you up. What kind of joke are you playing with the girl at the front desk?" Lan Fun complained with a smile, and pulled Lin Yi into the elevator. The little beauty at the front desk was speechless when she saw the usually calm Xiao Lan getting a little excited. She thought that these two handsome guys were really not simple. Fortunately, she didn't offend them. After entering the elevator, Lan Fun directly pressed the button for the highest floor and asked, "Lin bro, how is Tang Yun now?" Lin Yi couldn't help but let out a long sigh. He just thought of Tang Yun, and Lan Fun also asked about her. She was really the best friend. Lan Fun was secretly annoyed. Why did she ask Tang Yun for no reason? Why did she ask when she already knew? She was really stupid. Just when she was thinking about how to change the topic without leaving a trace, Languza suddenly whispered to Lin Yi, "Boss, her surname is Lan too. Could she be a relative of mine? Look at how handsome I am and how pretty she is. It seems very possible." Lin Yi looked at Languza speechlessly. What was going on? Lan Fun was a real human in the secular world. You're a real flood dragon from the endless sea. Relative? Don't talk about 8 poles. Even 8 million poles wouldn't be able to connect. Lan Fun was just worrying about how to change the topic, and someone gave her a way out. She laughed and said, "Mister, is your surname Lan too? What a coincidence. Maybe our ancestors are really a family." Lin Yi looked at Lan Fun and didn't say anything. If Lan Fun knew that the person in front of her was a flood dragon, she would probably go to her ancestors' graves to repent. Saying that one's ancestor was a flood dragon in the secular world was equivalent to saying that one's family was the descendant of a demon. Languza didn't care what Lin Yi was thinking. His favorite thing to do was to communicate with beautiful or handsome humans. When Lan Fun responded, he immediately used his special skills and started chatting with Lan Fun in 2 or 3 sentences. Lan Fun didn't want Lin Yi to remember Tang Yun's sad memories, so she cooperated and chatted with Languza. When the elevator stopped, the two of them were like long-lost siblings. When the elevator door opened, they heard a quarrel coming from the chairman's office. Because this floor was not accessible to unauthorized people, the office door wasn't closed. The conversation inside could be heard clearly. An unfamiliar man said loudly in stiff Chinese, "If the medicine from your Miracle Dr. Guan Medicine Company wants to enter Europe to participate in this medicine exhibition, you have to go through our holy." Kong Xiaobo interrupted without hesitation. "We received an invitation from Europe to participate in the exhibition. What kind of organization are you? Holy? Do you have Saint Seiya? Do you want us to meet your leader, Athena? Will she hit us with a golden staff?" Chapter 5668. Genius 1 second. Remember if you want to go? Sure, Net provides you with wonderful novels to read. Kong Xiaobo laughed and said disdainfully, Fine. I want to see if your Saint Seiya is really that powerful. Whatever methods you have to deal a blow to our miracle Dr. Guan medicine group, bring it on. Today, Kong Xiaobo and Lai Changyi were already masters of the foundation building stage. In the secular world, apart from their own people, they were invincible. Not to mention that Kong Xiaobo was just laughing at the other party. Even if the other party really had Saint Seiya, Kong Xiaobo was not afraid at all. As for using normal business methods, Kong Xiaobo had nothing to worry about with a business expert like Lai Changyi. After all, Miracle Dr. Guan's medical company had a lot of funds. There was nothing to worry about when it came to capital. No matter if it was civil or military, Kong Xiaobo wasn't afraid of them at all. His words were full of confidence. If they were here to discuss business, Kong Xiaobo and Lai Changyi would cooperate with them. But if they wanted to threaten Miracle Dr. Guan's medical company, then they had the wrong idea. The strange man said something in English, flustered and exasperated. Kong Xiaobo said indifferently, Take care, I won't see you out. Then Lin Yi saw two Europeans walk out angrily, swearing in English. Lin Yi frowned slightly, but he did not intend to teach them a lesson. To be honest, it was not suitable for Lin Yi to intervene in the affairs of the secular world. Moreover, he believed that Kong Xiaobo and Lai Changyi could handle the business affairs well. This matter seemed simple. Miracle Dr. Guan's medical company wanted to enter Europe, and the springboard was a medical exhibition that was about to start. Then, an organization in charge of this business jumped out and asked for benefits from Miracle Dr. Guan's medical company. But Kong Xiaobo rejected them cleanly. Lan Fan waited for the two to leave, then smiled apologetically at Lin Yi. Brother Lin, I'm sorry that you just came back and saw such an unpleasant scene. Lin Yi waved his hand. What's there to be sorry about? Any product that wants to enter Europe and America will be resisted by the local financial oligarchs. To enter the market smoothly, it's not just about having a good product. Xiaobo and Lai Changyi should be able to handle these things well. I don't have to worry about it, right? Hearing the conversation between Lin Yi and Lan Fan, Kong Xiaobo and Lai Changyi rushed out. Boss, you're back. How is it? Was it fun in the ancient Jianghu? The two rushed up and gave Lin Yi a bear hug as they spoke. They were the lackeys who followed Lin Yi from the beginning, so their relationship wasn't ordinary. Lin Yi was quite happy as well, and he smiled. There's nothing fun about it, so I'm back. Haha, then why don't you stay, boss? Kong Xiaobo laughed loudly. Although he knew that it was impossible, it had nothing to do with Lin Yi. Lai Changyi pushed Kong Xiaobo away. Stop talking nonsense, let the boss sit inside. Quickly take out your treasured tea and brew it. Damn fatty Lai. You've been eyeing my tea leaves for a long time, haven't you? You know that the boss doesn't like tea, so you're using your position for personal gain, aren't you? Kong Xiaobo looked angry, but his eyes were full of smiles. With Lin Yi here, the atmosphere seemed to be completely different from usual. Lai Changyi also laughed loudly, he didn't admit nor deny, and pulled Lin Yi to the office. After Languza was introduced to the two quickly became familiar with Languza. They were all Lin Yi's lackeys, so they were considered family, and there was a natural sense of closeness. In addition to Languza's characteristic of being familiar with people, the few of them were already close brothers in a short time. After chatting for a while, the topic turned to the two Europeans from before. Although Lin Yi didn't want to intervene in the affairs of the secular world, it didn't matter if he listened to the ins and outs. If necessary, he could also provide some suggestions of his own. In fact, the most important thing was that Languza was very interested in the saints of the Sanctum, Seiya and Athena, but he didn't know that this was just Kong Xiaobo's nonsense. After listening to Kong Xiaobo's official explanation, Lin Yi knew that this Sanctum organization was indeed not a simple place. Although there were no saints in Europe, it was definitely an existence that could turn the clouds and rain with a flip of their hands. You said that this Sanctum alliance suddenly appeared recently, and then monopolized the European pharmaceutical market in a very short time? Lin Yi frowned. This wasn't what he'd expected. It wasn't what he'd expected. Kong Xiaobo nodded and said, "Yes, I have never heard of the Sanctum Alliance in Europe before. Although our products are not exported to Europe and the United States, because the supply of our products cannot meet the demand in our country, we also pay attention to the European and American markets. After all, opening the international market is something that needs to be done sooner or later." Lai Changyi also said, "Our gold sore medicine is very popular in Europe. Since we can't order it through formal channels, many smuggling groups specially buy it in China and then smuggle it to Europe to make huge profits. Therefore, the gold sore medicine is still very well known in Europe. This time, the pharmaceutical exhibition sent an invitation letter to our group because of this reason. It just so happens that our production capacity has been further improved, and it is time to start entering the international market." The two sides hit it off. That European exhibition got a positive answer from us, and they were very happy. I didn't expect that the Sanctum Alliance would suddenly appear, and even send people to our group. Lan Fan personally made tea and filled Lin Yi and Languza's cups as she said with a smile. Kong Xiaobo moved a little to the side, and let Lan Fan sit down next to him. Then he continued Lan Fan's words and said, "Boss, since the appearance of the Sanctum Alliance, the attitude of the organizers of the pharmaceutical exhibition has become a little subtle. So this time, Brother Lai and I met the people sent by the Sanctum Alliance together, wanting to find out the other party's background." "So, did you find out?" Lin Yi thanked Lan Fan, picked up the teacup and said faintly. Lai Changyi and Kong Xiaobo looked at each other awkwardly and then said, "Boss, you saw the situation just now. These two foreigners came with an arrogant look. They talked for a long time, and the result was that they parted on bad terms. They didn't get any useful information." Chapter 56-69. Genius 1 second. Remember, if you want to go? To provide you with wonderful novels to read. I know about this. The organizer is a pharmaceutical group, and behind it is an ancient noble family in France with a deep background in Europe. Lan Fan seemed to be in charge of this information, so she answered Lin Yi's question. Lin Yi put down the teacup and smiled faintly. An organization with such a deep background was suppressed by the Sacred Alliance that just popped up. It'd be a miracle if you guys could find out anything about the Sacred Alliance. Languza imitated Lin Yi and took a sip of tea, but he felt bitter. He wanted to spit it out, but he was afraid of embarrassing Lin Yi. It would be over if Lin Yi did not bring him along when he went out in the future. He could only swallow the tea with a bitter face. After hearing Lin Yi's words, he quickly put down the teacup and actively asked, "Boss, that Sanctuary Alliance, why don't you let me go and kill them? By the way, where is Europe? If I go and kill them now, I can still come back in time for dinner, right?" In fact, Languza was so eager to deal with the Sanctuary Alliance because he wanted to confirm whether there were Saint Seiya and Goddess Athena there. Kong Xiaobo said it was a joke, but Languza felt that he still had to confirm it himself. Lin Yi smiled slightly and said, "You don't have to do it yourself. I will let you know if I need anything." Languza said with emotion, "Boss, if you need anything, I, Languza, will do it properly." After that, he focused on eating some fruit pastries on the table that Lan Fan put on the table. As for the teacup, he would not touch it a second time even if he was beaten to death. After being interrupted by Languza, Lin Yi did not want to talk more about the Sanctuary Alliance. There was not enough information now, so it was useless to talk more. So he got up and said, "That's it for today. When will you go to Europe for the exhibition? Let me know when the time comes. I will go with you." "Yes, boss." Kong Xiaobo and the others hurriedly stood up. Although they didn't think that Lin Yi needed to deal with these trivial matters, they would be more confident if Lin Yi went with them. Moreover, it was rare for them to meet Lin Yi, so they could go to Europe together. "Boss, why don't we go for a meal together?" Lai Changyi saw that Lin Yi was about to leave shortly after he arrived, so he wanted to have a meal together and get together for a while longer. If Lin Yi were to return to the Heaven Stage Island according to his original plan, they would definitely have a meal together. But now that he had decided to check out the Sacred Alliance, he naturally wasn't in a hurry. Most importantly, Linny felt that the appearance of the Sacred Alliance was a little strange. This timing. You guys go ahead with your work. I still have to meet someone else. Dinner can wait until I go to Europe. Linny smiled and waved his hand, indicating that they didn't need to send him off. He turned around and walked towards the elevator with Languza. Linny said that they didn't need to send him off, but Kang Xiaobo, Lai Changyi, and the others couldn't really not send him off. After all, Linny was their most respected boss. Even Lan Fun. They accompanied him into the elevator and sent him out of the building. All right, you guys go back to your work. If you continue to send me off, you'll have to send me back to the villa. Just call me if there's anything. After Linny finished speaking, he didn't care about Kang Xiaobo and the others anymore. He brought Languza and left the Miracle Dr. Guan Medical Group. Languza followed Lin Yi for a while. His eyes lit up when he saw the trendy clothes in the display window. Boss, I want some new clothes. Why don't we go there? Lin Yi looked at the clothing store. He wasn't interested in accompanying Languza to shop, so he immediately shook his head and said, "It's too troublesome to buy clothes. It's not convenient to hold them in my hands. Why don't you buy them yourself and go back to the villa?" Languza suddenly hesitated. On one hand, there were handsome clothes. On the other hand, there was a rare opportunity to come out and broaden his horizons. It was hard to choose. Linny didn't stop walking. He said without turning his head, "Let's go. I'll get someone to send a set of clothes suitable for you to the villa. It'll be enough for you to wear for a few years." This was nothing. The wealth of the common world was just a meaningless number to Lin Yi. If Languza liked it, he could buy a clothing company to make clothes for Languza. There was no need to waste even a second on this. Languza heard Lin Yi's words and laughed. He followed Lin Yi in satisfaction and continued to look around. Lin Yi was thinking about who he should look for next. He suddenly stopped and looked carefully. This seemed to be the bar where he met Sun Jingyi for the first time. Speaking of which, he hadn't seen Sun Jingyi for a long time. Thinking about the promise of being half a lover, Lin Yi couldn't help but miss it. Let's go see Sun Jingyi. Lin Yi immediately made a decision. It's just that Sun Jingyi's family was in another city. It was still a bit far from here. Lin Yi could fly there quickly if he transformed into his primordial spirit, but Languza couldn't follow. "Boss, do you want to go there to eat? Then let's go. What are you standing here for?" Languza followed Lin Yi's gaze and saw a Western restaurant. There were a few people eating inside. He suddenly felt a little hungry. Actually, Languza was a super expert in the late stage of mysterious ascension. What he needed to replenish was pure spiritual energy. The food of the secular world was useless no matter how much he ate. The so-called hunger was completely because his mouth was gluttonous. Lin Yi looked at the Western restaurant and sighed softly in his heart. That was the bar he and Sun Jingyi met. But now it had become a completely different Western restaurant. Things really remain the same, but people have changed. Let's go there and eat something." Lin Yi didn't refuse Languza's proposal this time. Although the bar was no longer there, the place was still the same. It was good to go in and sit. When Languza heard Lin Yi's agreement, he immediately ran over with a smile and opened the door before the doorman. Just as he was about to go in, he suddenly turned around and said to Lin Yi, "Boss, please go first. When did you become so polite?" Lin Yi smiled and didn't bother with Languza. He walked in first. The Western restaurant's decoration was very luxurious. It didn't seem to be low-grade, but Lin Yi was very disappointed. After entering, he felt that there was really no trace of the previous bar. Chapter 5670. Genius 1 second. Remember, if you want to go, we provide you with wonderful novels to read. He called out more than a dozen dishes in one breath. Lin Yi was dumbfounded. How did this guy know these dishes? He was so smooth that he could do crosstalk, right? The key was that this was a Western restaurant. You called out so many Chinese dishes, and they covered the 4 major cuisines. You're clearly here to cause trouble, right? Actually, how would Languza know the difference between Chinese and Western cuisine? He had seen these dishes on TV. At that time, he was already drooling. Now that he finally came to a restaurant, of course, he had to order everything at once. However, as a carnivorous sea beast king, he definitely wouldn't eat vegetables. He also wanted to vomit from eating seafood. Chicken, duck, beef, lamb, and pork were enough. Just as Lenny thought about it, a young man rushed out angrily and shouted, "Where did this little bastard come from? How dare you cause trouble at my place? Are you tired of living?" Seeing this person rush out, the few diners who were already there paid the bill and left in a hurry. Obviously, they knew that this person wasn't easy to get along with. However, Lenny was a little surprised. The voice sounded familiar. Could it be someone he knew? Looking back, he indeed looked familiar, but he couldn't remember his name. It should be a small character. He had seen him before, but he didn't pay much attention to him. As Lenny didn't have time to sit down, and was still standing near the door, the young man and 4 burly men directly ignored Lenny and surrounded Languza. Languza said curiously, "Why are you surrounding me? Hurry up and send the dishes up. Get out of the way. The stench is affecting my appetite." "Kid, which path are you from? Who ordered you to come here to cause trouble?" The young man saw that Languza was still fearless after being surrounded. He felt that this guy might have some background, so he spoke more politely. Languza scratched his head and thought to himself, "I'm from the Endless Sea's Serpent Island. Have you heard of it? Boss, is it so troublesome to eat here? Can I beat them up?" Languza ignored the young man and stood up to ask Lenny. Languza was about 2 meters tall. When he stood up, he was about a head taller than those burly men. He felt like a crane in a flock of chickens. When he heard that Languza had a boss, the young man's heart jumped. He quickly looked back and saw that Lenny was just standing there casually. He didn't seem powerful. However, when he looked carefully, the young man's expression suddenly changed. This guy looked very familiar. Before he could speak, another young man ran out and shouted anxiously, "Brother, don't be impulsive. Let's talk this out. Guru Lin told us to behave and not cause trouble. Brother, don't be impulsive. Let's talk about it. Hayashi Lin told us to behave and not cause trouble." Lenny raised his eyebrows. Because this was the place where he met Sun Genie for the first time, he didn't use his divine sense to scan the place. Anyway, there was no danger in the secular world, so he didn't need to be vigilant all the time. So he missed some acquaintances here. The one who just ran out, Lenny recognized at a glance. It was Zhou Ruoming, the second of the 4 big bullies. He was also Lin Yi's schoolmate and later became Lin Yi's underling. However, he joined Lenny later, so he wasn't as successful as Kong Xiaobo. Seeing Zhou Ruoming, Lenny remembered who the familiar young man was. He was Zhou Ruoming's brother Zhou Ruoguang, who used to be a gangster. But this guy didn't have many contacts with Lin Yi, so Lenny didn't pay much attention to him. It was normal that he didn't remember him. Hearing his brother's words, Zhou Ruoguang's expression became extremely strange. Obviously, he had recognized that the blue-haired big boss was Lin Yi. In the beginning, Zhou Ruoguang was the first one in the Zhou family who was afraid of Lin Yi. Lin Yi didn't have a deep impression of him, but he was afraid of Lin Yi to the bone. Now that he recognized Lin Yi, he should come to greet him immediately. However, no one knew what Zhou Ruoguang was thinking. He rolled his eyes and pretended that he didn't recognize Lin Yi. He shouted to Zhou Ruoming, "What do you mean I'm impulsive? Don't you see that this guy is here to make trouble? Who would order twice cooked pork in ancient-style pork in a Western restaurant? Crab meat lion's head? I will put some powder on his face, and then he will have a big lion's head." Lenny looked at Zhou Ruoguang with interest. This guy obviously recognized him, but he was still pretending. What was he going to do? In fact, Zhou Ruoguang was also panicking. He was afraid that Lenny would turn against him, so he didn't dare to be too presumptuous. He changed the topic and said, "Ruoming, don't talk about Hayashi Lin all day. You'd better think about yourself. If your Hayashi Lin is really so powerful, why didn't he come to help you?" Hearing this, Lenny understood. Zhou Ruoguang pretended that he didn't know him to say this to him. He didn't know what trouble Zhou Ruoming encountered. After all, he was Lin Yi's underling's underling. If he could help, Lenny wouldn't mind helping him. "Brother, don't say that. Hayashi Lin must have his own things to do. Besides, he left for college. How can he help me if he doesn't know my business? Zhou Ruoming defended Lin Yi. In fact, he also knew that Lin Yi's identity was already too high for him to reach. Even if Lin Yi was here, he wouldn't have time to care about him. As he was thinking about this, he turned his head and saw Lin Yi standing not far from him. A few years had passed, but Lin Yi didn't change at all. Naturally, Zhou Ruoming recognized Lin Yi at a glance. Hayashi Lin, is it really you? Zhou Ruoming rubbed his eyes hard and couldn't believe it. Lin Yi smiled faintly and said, Zhou Ruoming, long time no see. Did you open this restaurant? Yes. I opened it. Hayashi Lin, why didn't you tell me that you were coming back? Let me hold a welcoming dinner for you. What a coincidence today. A chance encounter is better than an invitation. God Lin, you have to give me some face and let me treat you to a meal. Ruoming was overjoyed as he grabbed the opportunity to invite Lin Yi to a meal. If it was another time, Lin Yi was someone that Zhou Ruoming couldn't even invite. It was rare that Lin Yi took the initiative to come to his restaurant. Of course, he would take the opportunity to build a good relationship with him. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Sword of Destiny YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.